stream. We're streaming. We should be live. Mark? All right, ladies and
All right.
gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for Dialogue Options number 11. There's the intro, ladies and gentlemen. We got it.
We
Ah,
did it.
11 parts. We finally did it right away. Oh, holy shit. And all we needed to do was jettison Russell out of here.
Shoot him into the sun.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was weighing us
He's
down.
gone for the next half hour or so. We don't really know, but you were telling me he's going to be a little late to this session.
Yeah, so like he was saying that he was gonna be a little late because he's doing an after party thing with his music school friends. So he's schmoozing right now.
We all know Russ. He's a heavy schmoozer.
Mm-hmm.
Very
But
much
also
into
at the
that.
same time, we don't know when he's gonna join us, so he could drop in at any moment.
He really could.
Oh.
Yes, surprise Russell is usually not the best type of Russell, but it's what we have. It's what we have now.
This is the hashtag surprise Russell stream.
Yeah, so we're starting up like maybe 10 minutes or so later than we expected, and you were playing some MTG Arena, right? I think we were both on a little later for game related reasons.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I've been playing all week is some MTG Arena. It's really fun. It's a good opportunity for me since I'm trying to get back into Magic the Gathering, to kind of just like relearn how to play and practice. Oh, and we were talking in real life and talking about like getting me set up with some decks of cards. So Monday, my girlfriend and I took a trip to a card shop a few towns over, as we tried to go to a card shop about like 40 minutes away. It seemed like it was a really cool idea because it was like a card shop that was like, it had like a pizza bar and Japanese food and all this extra stuff.
Yeah, that sounds
and
awesome.
It sounded so cool. So we drive out 45 minutes to go to this town, right? We get there, and I'm like, oh shit, the lights are off.
Oh no!
I know. we get there, and I'm like, oh.
Is it laser light day at the games?
Right? Maybe they were doing the black light night or something. I don't know. But so we go in there and we go up to the door, and it's like, Monday is the only day that they're closed, dude.
Oh, yeah, that's rough. I'm sorry that happened, but you went to a more local store after that.
Yeah, so then we
cards, right?
we stopped for lunch at a cute little sports bar. It was like a family-owned sports bar, and then we drove back a little bit closer to home and stopped at the card shop that you told me about that you used to go to, and
yeah, that's a good one.
I picked up 3 decks for $25. Cool. Yeah. So,
$25 total?
Total, yeah.
That's a good deal because starter decks usually run for about $15 a piece.
Yeah, so what it was a one of them was a like straight up starter deck, and the second one was kind of like it was like a 2 deck pack, and it was like a learn how to play starter pack or whatever for $10.
All right.
Yeah, cool. You can't beat it. Oh, and the best part, since we were talking about Arena, was both of these starter packs came with redeem codes, so I was able to automatically
get the cards in the game. Right?
Yes. So like the thing was like I just kind of picked up those decks, just going, all right, yeah, I'll play with these, and then continue to like just scrounge around for like whatever card I can get on Arena. But no, I can play with them on the game now. So like all week I've been like practicing this main deck that I've got here, and I'm real excited to kick your ass with it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it. You came over to my place this past weekend, and we were playing some games. Sadly, you were using an old deck that you made, like 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was whatever was held over from the original starter deck that I had. So the original starter deck was a green-white Gigantomancer deck, and I probably made the biggest mistake of like my early Magic career by trading away all of the white cards for like just a hodgepodge mess of black cards. And
it happens.
Yeah, because I don't know, I was more so just trying to build up a just a green black zombie deck because I had some pretty decent cards for black,
Mhm.
but I had no use for it because it was just a green white deck. So I talked to my friend and he was like, all right, yeah, I'll set you up with some cards or whatever, and it just overall made the deck worse.
Yeah,
And
it didn't seem to really have much of a theme going on with it.
Mhm.
It seemed like a hodgepodge
Yeah.
of cards. Yeah, no offense, but past Joe wasn't setting you up for success
No,
last
absolutely
weekend.
not. Yeah, because like I had cards in that deck, if I remember correctly, it was like there were enchantments to like give creatures like +2/+2 and vigilance, and it was probably a big mistake that I gave up those cards, but you live and you learn. But these cards that I got now, I mean these decks that I got now, I'm pretty satisfied with them. So the most I'm willing to tell you about these decks until we get together and play with them. One of
Yeah,
them
yeah.
is a mono white. That's it. That's all I'm telling you. That one's gonna be my main deck. It's a mono
I don't
white.
even get anything else beyond that. Just the color.
Yes, that's it. That's all you need to know.
Okay. I don't
uh,
even get a card type like, oh, this focuses on enchantments. I don't get anything like that. All right,
no, none at all.
I'll go in blind. I prefer that.
Yeah, so it'll be a big surprise to you. Like I said, I've been practicing like heavily with this. Like outside of just doing like the quest of like, oh, cast like 20 red or blue spells. I've been mainly just using this deck on Arena just to like hone my skills, learn the deck, and
Mhm.
hopefully hopefully I'm not bad at it. Okay, so no, I will tell you one thing about this deck, and I won't give too much away, but it has something to do with devotion counters. It's a mono white with devotion counters. That's it. No
Okay,
more.
so
No
it's
more.
a like a Theros themed deck.
No more. I will not tell you anymore.
Okay.
But then the two other decks that I got in the game in Arena, it calls them Sneak Attack and Rough and Tumble. Sneak Attack is a red blue kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like one of those decks where I don't know. I haven't used them much because like when we got home after we stopped off at the card shop, I
Mhm.
taught my girlfriend how to play, and I was like, all right, what deck do you want to use first? And she's like, oh, I don't know, maybe the black one because black is pretty cool. I was like, all right, cool. Use the black green. I'll use the red blue. I'll just take it slow, teach you the basics of how to play, and we kind of
Yeah.
worked our way through it. And we quickly discovered that the red blue was a lot stronger and a lot quicker than the green black for whatever reason. I don't know. Like the green black had like some like vampire creature in it that like when it enters the battlefield, the controller gains 2 and the opponent loses 2. I
Uh-huh.
forget what it's called, but it's like Vampire's Thrall or something. I don't know. But anyway, so like it was just like I haven't figured out quite how to use the green black, but
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, well, next time we get together to play, I could take a look at it and see
mhm,
what I think. I mean,
yeah,
but sometimes that happens, two decks just don't seem to be either good matches for each other or one's just, better than the other.
yeah,
I remember this was a while back. I don't know if they even still do this anymore, but they make these things called dual decks,
mhm,
and I don't know if they still make them anymore, but they would release them here and there for over the course of years that they made these things, and it was pretty much two decks that were meant to be played against each other.
mhm,
And my friend had this one. It was back. It was like a gold. It was a Ravnica focused dual deck. It was Golgari versus Izzet.
mhm,
So that's actually ironically exactly what you just said right there. It's red blue. That's Izzet, and then Golgari is black green. And
mhm.
yeah, the decks were meant to be like focused on those guilds, and they're meant to be played against each other. But whenever we played, he would always whoop my ass. As is it like?
Yeah, I mean, granted, I haven't had too much time to like look through them. I use the red blue one on occasion when I'm playing on
Mhm.
Arena just to like help me fulfill like requirements for you know quests so I can gain quick easy gold so I can buy more
Okay,
packs. Um,
cool.
but I really haven't bothered looking through the green black. It just feels very underwhelming. You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah, yeah. It happens sometimes.
I'm sure there's a strategy there somewhere. I just haven't figured it out yet, and I haven't bothered trying.
Maybe. I know when you were over, we were playing with the guild kits,
Mm-hmm.
and those are cool. And there's, of course, since I have one for each of the 10 guilds of Ravnica, there was the Black Green Golgari one. But it seems like whenever I play that one, I just can't get too much of a hang of it. I feel like I'm always getting my cards at the wrong time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like,
Yeah, it feels like they're tough to build steam with.
yeah, maybe I just suck with the dredge mechanic, which seems to be pretty important with that deck,
Mm-hmm.
and like important to the whole graveyard mechanic it has going on in there. I know a lot of people like that ability
Mm-hmm.
when they play graveyard focused decks like that, but I don't know. Maybe I just need to get more experience with it. But it just seems like I always get my cards out of order. I either have a full graveyard when I don't need to, or I have an empty graveyard when I need a full one.
Right, yeah, yeah. It that almost seems like it would be a really good counter to like a mill deck, because like I keep running up against mill decks up in the Platinum 2 League over in
I've
Arena.
always wanted to build a mill deck, but
They're
I never have.
fucking annoying, dude. Like,
Let me guess, you're up against those mill crabs that with like the 3 toughness.
oh yeah, it's like what is it? I forget exactly what it was, but yeah, they're a 0/3 with landfall.
Yep.
So every time the player
Is it
plays
Hedron crab?
or no, ruin crab.
Ruin crab.
Yeah, every
Okay.
time the player like plays a land card, opponent mills 3 cards, and it's fucking annoying.
They made another one of those too in the last time they did a Zendikar set.
Mhm.
They made another one of those crabs that mills your opponent. So that's even more gas for those mill decks.
Yeah, and the worst of it is that like all of those abilities stack. It's infuriating because like, sometimes you're just sitting there waiting for that one extra mana to play a really decent card, and you're like, fuck, I just got another enchantment because you fucking milled my deck, and I had 3 mana right after that.
Yeah, I'm curious to build a deck like that because there are some fun mill cards that I've seen. Like there's this one from back in the Shards of Alara block that came out over a decade ago. Jeez, that was probably like around 2009. But there was this card I always liked from that set, from that block called Mind Funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it cost like 3. It was a black-blue card. I think it cost 3 mana, and your opponent mills cards from the top of their deck until they mill 4 lands.
Mm-hmm.
So I just
Wait,
always thought
four in a row or 4 total?
4 total.
Okay.
Yeah, so I always thought it would be fun to play that card and just watch my opponent dump all these cards from the top of their deck. And there were actually multiple effects like that that make your opponent mill until they hit a land, but I always thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, and in case you're wondering, those who are listening who have never heard of Magic the Gathering or have never experienced the disappointment of facing a mill deck, basically the ability for mill is you discard cards off the top of your deck. However many with the ability tells you to discard, that's how many you have to discard off the top of your deck. And it's fucking
also
annoying.
according to the rules of the game, if you try to draw a card and you can't, you lose the game. So that's why people make these decks. That's the win condition.
Yeah. So like, people like me who try to play with 60 cards because I feel like 60 cards is like the right number because it is. Yeah, you get what you're trying to do with the deck.
Yeah, the most consistency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, I mean, my main deck that I've been running, it has 25 land cards, which I feel like is ever so slightly too many. Typically I like to keep it a little bit on the lower side with like 24, 23, but
yeah, that's kind of a sweet spot. I mean, I typically use 23 or 24. Some of my decks that focus on cards with lower mana costs, I probably could go lower on the lands, but I just hate not being able to draw a land. So I like to play it safe. As you know from our first game that we played, it's really
you mean the only game that I won with my deck from college?
Yes, yeah.
So-
That the only way that that deck was able to win was that I wasn't able to play a single
you
card.
got mana screwed.
Yeah, I was just waiting. Every card in my hand needed blue, and I couldn't find the island.
Yep.
But yeah, that's annoying when that happens. So I like to be more conservative with my mana and
Hmm.
whatnot. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, you're getting me more into like the Magic groove now too, because lately I've been thinking about you know potential decks that I want to build and stuff like that. Like just today, I was thinking about a deck idea that I want to build, and it would be like a mono green ramp deck.
Okay.
So focusing on getting the mana down quickly, and specifically, I'd want to build up for this one card that came out back in like close to around 10 years ago now. I'm talking about all these old cards. But it came out in the Innistrad set. It was a mythic rare called Essence of the Wild. And I always thought that that card was cool. It's a 6/6 for 6.
Hmm.
And its ability is that creatures entering the battlefield under your control enter as copies of Essence of the Wild.
Hmm.
So I always thought that that was a really fun ability. Once you have him on the field, as long as you can keep him around,
Hmm.
then you can just you can play any creature from your hand, or even throw tokens onto the field,
Yeah.
and they come in as 6/6s.
Right. Yeah, that almost kind of reminds me of like these decks that I've been running into, and they're also really fucking annoying. They're mono green, or at least I think they're mono green. They might be like green black or whatever. But it's like, you ever hear of the card Scoot Swarm?
Yeah, that's the bug that keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, they're fucking annoying too, because like after I think the ability it's also like landfall. So like those of you out there listening, landfall is an ability where when the player plays a land card, a mana card, it activates automatically the ability. So with
Yeah, triggers
so
landfall.
so with Scoot Swarm, I think it's like a 1/1 just like bug thing or whatever. When up until 5 mana, what it does, it just creates a 1/1 bug token creature
Yeah.
card but after that, if you have 6 or more, you create instead of creating a token, you create a token copy of Scoot Swarm, and then it just ramps up from there. There was this one match where I played this dude, and he just like he let it go on because he knew he had it. He fucking ended the match with like a 219 damage with all of his tokens. Yeah, he was just like, "Oh yeah, good game." I was like, "Please end it, or else I'm gonna concede." Please, because like you can concede at any point, but I was just like interested to see because it was like teetering on the edge to a certain point. He was like down to like one hit if like he got the wrong card, it was my match. So I was really invested in trying, and then he played Scoot Swarm, and I was like, oh fuck, I hate this card.
Yeah, it turns into that scene from The Mummy when like you're in the treasure room and all the scarabs are swarming on the ground. You pretty much become like that greedy dude who tries to go back for the treasure when the doors are closing, and he ends up getting destroyed by the scarabs.
Yeah, and that deck runs really well with a card called Beanstalk Giant. It is a it doesn't have it's okay, so it's a 1 green 6 colorless for a it can be played as a sorcery at first.
Is it an adventure card?
No, it's a creature. It's just a creature giant. So
Okay.
so it has an ability called Fertile Footsteps that you can use as a sorcery. So search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Then
Isn't that an adventure card?
I don't know.
Does it look like it has like a storybook pattern in the
Yeah,
text?
so then I guess it is an adventure card. So and then it's like then exile this card. You may cast a creature later from exile. Yeah. So but then it comes in to the battlefield with power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. So
Yeah, it feeds off of itself.
yeah, so it's base 7/7 guaranteed.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I have one of those adventure cards in my black red deck. I'm using a Bone Crusher Giant. That's
Mhm.
another cool one. You might have seen that.
Yeah,
being
that sounds
played.
familiar.
Yeah, it's a red card, mono red. Yeah, I think it's the spell part of it is it does like 2 damage to a creature or
Hmm.
something, and then it's a pretty solid creature when it's on the field in its own right. So he's strong. I haven't gotten to too many chances to try out the deck since I added him into it, so maybe I can play that against you sometime.
Yeah, totally. I'm always down to play some cards, man. I mean, I was talking with Russ about because like I didn't want to tell him about the decks that I bought either, and I was like, yeah, like playing with
Yeah.
Mark was really fun. Like I didn't want to stop because
Yeah,
like
me neither. I can play for hours,
yeah,
dude.
that's what he was saying. He's like, yeah, the thing was with Mark, he's like he gets real competitive, so he could sit there and play for hours. And he was like, yeah, after like 2 or 3 games, I'm done. I was like, nah, fuck it. I'll play cards with Mark for hours. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy like I'll come home from like a busy day at work or something,
Hmm.
and I could still sit down and play like strategical games of Magic for hours, even though I'm already spent from a day at work, just because that kind of thing invigorates me. It's not like a chore to put myself in that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy playing the game, and yeah, but some people it's like okay, a few matches and okay, I'm good for now, but I just want to keep going. Yeah, I find myself falling into these slumps sometimes where I want to sit down, just have like a fun game where we're just like laughing and talking, but sometimes I find myself slipping into this stage where I just like get serious and don't say a whole lot, and I'm just like analyzing the field and picking my moves and stuff. I gotta catch myself when I do that and say like, okay, this is kitchen table magic. I gotta snap out of it. But that's good that you're getting back into the game. It's
Hmm.
definitely good to have more people to play with. It makes me want to play more. It's really it's kind of daunting to sometimes to work on decks when there aren't a whole lot of people to play with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
more
I
the
mean,
merrier.
that's kind of what like really in college. I mean, like I said, I learned how to play Magic in college, and I got it like a starter deck and like a few booster packs, kind of give
Mhm.
me a little bit of an extra edge. But like the one game that we were playing a lot in college was Yu-Gi-Oh, and
Okay,
yeah, so oh, that's another
we were talking about
conversation for
Yu-Gi-Oh a
another
little bit
day.
last week, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah, and so like I would play Yu-Gi-Oh with my friends, and I was like, I had my heart set on trying to build like the best Dark Magician deck I could possibly build.
Uh-huh.
And so like the thing with Yu-Gi-Oh is unless you using like a meta deck, your deck is gonna be real garbage. Because like the problem that I ran into with my Dark Magician deck or my Dark Magician deck was that it was too slow. I mean, I had like um
Mhm.
I forget exactly what it was called, but it was like a 1900 attack. I forget what defense it was, but it was like a 4-star Dark Magician type thing where like you could special summon Dark Magician, but even then like it just was so slow. And I even had like multiple
Okay.
copies of Dark Magician Girl on my deck to kind of like have as a backup in case my Dark Magician, was to die. And then I had like the ritual card for, Dark Magician Knight and all that stuff. And it didn't
Yeah,
stack up with my friend's cards because I was too dead set on doing like a role play deck.
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you wanted to play a deck that you thought was fun, that you built yourself, and that it fell in line with your interests, which
Hmm.
is the same way I approach card games. But I mean, the issue you had with Yu-Gi-Oh, that's kind of the issue you'll run into pretty much any card game. There's always a meta if you're trying to play competitively.
Hmm.
Sooner or later, the best combinations of cards get whittled down, and the meta gets created, and
Yep.
it boils down to samey decks squaring off against each other, and that's why I don't play standard in Magic or really any of those tournament formats. Just because I just feel it limits creativity, and
Yeah.
I want to be able to play the decks that I have fun with, and that's why I play casually. And I build my decks to win. I want them to be strong, but they're all my ideas
Yeah,
filled
and
with cards that I actually want to use.
yeah, I mean, like the decks that we played with last weekend, they all felt like they had some sort of theme to them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
and that was really cool. I like that, and it just it's refreshing to know that there's someone out there who kind of has that similar mindset where you don't necessarily go in for the best combination of cards to build the ultimate deck. You build the deck to have fun, because at the end of the
Exactly.
day, that's what it's all about. It's just hanging out with your friends and having fun, and
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
because near like the end of my card playing stuff when I was at college, I felt so disheartened to play cards with my friends because like
Hmm.
I just kept getting beat, dude, and it wasn't fun anymore, because
Yeah.
my one friend had like a super competitive like dragon deck, and there was one match where no joke, he beat me in 3 turns, and I think that was the point where I was just like, I'm done with playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm done. I stopped buying cards at that point. I was just like, you know what, I'm done.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I stepped away from Yu-Gi-Oh a long time ago. Probably like freshman in high school was the
Yeah.
last time I was really into
Yeah,
it.
because like I remember when I was like growing up, that it was like every Christmas I'd get a new one of those, collector's tins with like the
I
special
le-
ultra rare card, and you
those
get
tins used to be my jam.
the
Yeah, I
booster
had a stack of
boxes,
those.
right? Right, with all like
I
the
didn't get
booster
any.
packs.
I didn't get any booster boxes for Yu-Gi-Oh, but
Hmm.
I would get the tins pretty often. I liked getting those.
Yeah, and because I remember my mom and my aunt would always buy me like multiple like different boxes of booster packs and all that with like the tins. So I think I had like 6 or 7 different Yu-Gi-Oh tins. I was really into Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid. So like when Russ is talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. Like I totally get it. Like it's awesome. Like I was into the anime, I was into the video games, I was into the card game. I was all about it. But then like when I finally, got back into college and I met people that like to play Yu-Gi-Oh, I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, like I'll finally get a chance to like hang out with people that are like-minded individuals, and it didn't turn out that way,
And then you got stomped. Yeah.
Yeah, I got stomped because I was too busy trying to role play the decks, and they're like, "Nah, dude, we're competitive. We take
Yeah.
we take this children's card game very seriously."
Yeah, that's the joke, right? Children's card game, but um, yeah. To me, it's a boring way to play. It lacks creativity when you're
Mhm.
just net decking, and you say you go to a tournament and you're going to be squaring off against the stuff you've seen before.
Yeah.
And that's just it doesn't appeal to me. To
Yeah.
me, it just seems really lame. And I get that it happens. There's gonna eventually people are gonna find the best combinations of cards, and there's gonna be a meta.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you're not playing within that meta, you might not be competitive unless you can think of something really innovative.
Mhm.
But that's why I stay away from that kind of play. Also, it's just more expensive to do that
Oh
too,
yeah,
because
for
you're
sure. Because
especially for
decks.
something like standard, you're always swapping cards out of you have to get new decks entirely, and
Mhm.
since it's standard, you're playing with the newest cards, so they're going to be some of the more expensive ones
Mhm.
that have come out over the last few years. So that's another turnoff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, when we were at the card shop, I was just, like, browsing at the individual cards that they had for sale, and I think the most expensive one that I happened to notice was, it was, like, a $20. I need to look it up, because it's something that I'm very interested in adding to my deck later down the line, but it's
Mhm.
$20. I think it's,
What was it? What did it do?
oh, here it is. Heliod Sun Crowned. Let me pull it
Oh,
up.
okay. A god. Is that like a white god
Yeah, it's a
card?
legendary enchantment creature god. It's
Yeah.
mono white, indestructible as long as you have devotion to white less than 5. Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control, and you tap 1 white, 1 colorless. Another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn.
Yeah, the god cards. There's one for every color, and I think every 2-color combination. There's a
Hmm.
god card.
Yeah,
So they're usually pretty strong, and they all have that devotion mechanic.
yeah.
But yeah,
Which
some of them are pretty
I think
pricey.
would go really well with my mono white deck since it's all about a devotion.
Yeah, since that's the only thing I know about your deck, I would say yes, this guy would definitely work with that.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to drop $22 for one single card. That's a bit much.
Yeah, that's more than I like to spend. Honestly, when I build a 60 card deck, I like to spend $50-$60 tops.
Hmm.
Like, I'm pretty cheap when it comes to Magic, and for me, like, if I need multiple copies of a card, anything more than like $7.50 is getting expensive.
Yeah, because I remember you were telling me, because I was talking with you last weekend when we were playing, and I was like, oh yeah, I would love to build like a life gain deck where like I have like cards that synergize with, you know, 1+1/+1 counters
Yeah.
when you summon creatures.
I
But
have a
like,
commander deck that's all based around life gain mechanics,
yeah,
gaining crazy amounts of life.
and so like I was like, yeah, but I really want to build this deck, but there's a card that's like $5, and you looked at me and you're like, dude, like that's nothing.
I mean, I do see where you're coming from, but in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, there are some incredibly expensive cards out there for this game, depending on which format you're playing.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I try to keep it cheap. And the beautiful thing about the game is that you can play pretty cheaply. I mean, that blue-white deck I played against you, that was, it's a strong deck. It's really good. And I think I
Hmm.
spent less than $30 on it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not bad, all things
Yeah.
considered. I mean,
Yeah.
average, that's 50 cents a card. Even,
Yeah.
but like the thing is though, like I've been looking on TCG Trader for like different cards here and there just to like see what's out there and what things cost, and a lot of cards are like less than 10 cents, and I'm like, all right, I can fuck with that. That's pretty awesome. All right, I can get that card and I can get this card. So
Was it TCG Trader or TCG Player?
I don't know.
Because I use TCG Player to buy cards, but I haven't heard of Trader.
Okay, then that's probably what I'm thinking of, because like when I like Google the names of cards, that's whatever the first thing is
Okay.
that pops up is whatever it is. It's probably TCG Player.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, but if you are looking to buy some cards, TCG Player is a good place to get them because
Mhm.
it's an aggregate storefront, so it's a bunch of different dealers who are
Yeah,
all
that's what that's what I think it is. It's where it like lists cards where it's like mint condition or near
yeah
mint or lightly played, and it lists
yes
them by value
yeah
based
you
off
can
of.
pick the you filter by condition
Hmm.
and the set that it's in if it was reprinted, and yeah, you can pick the cheapest one out of whoever's offering it. Good thing to remember there with that site is that shipping costs can get you, so it's helpful to buy from the same seller if you can.
Yeah, to try and buy in bulk so that way you're not paying out the nose with shipping. Yeah.
Yeah, the site has a cart optimizer where you just click a button in your shopping cart when you have a bunch of cards in there, and it'll tell you what your best deal is given what
Hmm.
you're trying to buy. But sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay.
So it's just something to keep in mind. If you might want 20 cards, but if you're trying to buy from 20 different dealers, it's going to cost you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting though that you mentioned trying to build like a black-green zombie deck though before, and I think that's a good idea for you because A, I know you like zombie
Hmm.
stuff, and B, it would be a tribal deck, meaning that a deck focused on a specific creature type.
Yeah.
So I think that would be good for you. It's always good when you're first getting into Magic, to try and build a tribal deck because they're really straightforward to build, and you can make them really strong if you get the right cards together.
Hmm.
Uh, my first deck that I made was a vampire deck, so
Yeah,
I
and
still have it.
I think the deck that Russell has is an ally deck, right? Whatever
Yeah,
that
so that'd
means.
be that'd be tribal for allies.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to start when you're playing this game.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Oh, and I would also be remiss if I didn't tell you that I got myself a playmat. It's really
what's
cute.
on it?
It's really
What's on
cute.
it?
I was like looking around on Amazon. I was like, oh, I can't find anything that I like, and so I told my girlfriend that I was looking for one, and she just was like being a great girlfriend in the background searching for me, and she sent me a couple of them, and so the first one she sent me was like Star Wars, but in the Last Supper. And I was like, all right, that's interesting. I like that. That's cool. That's definitely my style, because because it's Star Wars, and and then the second one she sent me, which I ended up buying, was it was Cthulhu, and I was like, all right, I'm willing to pay whatever it costs to buy this thing because
Usually about $20.
it was $27.
Okay. Yeah,
But
well, that too.
yeah,
Cat Okay.
so yeah, I'll show you when I get the chance the next time we
Nice.
play.
Yeah.
Or
When we were playing, you saw my two playmats that I use. I have Gilded Lotus
mhm.
and the updated art for Black Lotus. They look
Uh-huh.
really nice.
Yeah, they were
The,
really
the,
pretty.
the one that I have from back in the day, like when M12 came out, I got it as a door prize,
Hmm.
and I'm looking at it right now because I use it as a mouse pad. It's sitting under my laptop, but it has a picture of Sun Titan on it, which is
Okay,
a white card.
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Yeah, I saw it and immediately was like, all right, yeah, I have to
Go
have
on.
this. This is
That's the
this is
one.
too. I mean, like I'm a cat, so like, of course.
You are a cat. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, I'm a walking, talking anthropomorphic cat.
He is that.
Yes, that I am. So when we actually met, Mark and I, through Russell playing Halo, and so like it was funny because at the time, I remember this distinctly when I met Danton the very first time I met him when we went to Russ and Mark and Danton's old college to just kind of like hang out in person for the first time. Uh, Danton was like, "Holy shit, dude! Like I thought you were fat." because because like I was always so concerned because with the way that my bedroom and my sister's bedroom were, they were like right next to each other, so like she would like constantly hear us playing Halo and I'd be talking and she's like, "Oh, shut the fuck up, I'm trying to sleep, I got class in the morning." And so like I would have to whisper like this and get really close to the microphone, and so Dan just like pictured me as some like fat fuck like neckbeard dude just like
Had the headset half in your mouth.
yeah. And so then when he saw me and realized I was a cat, he was like, "Oh, okay." No, but like in all seriousness, he was like really surprised to see like that I was like really thin and real like lanky and tall, and he's like, "Oh wow, you didn't look anything like I imagined." And then when I saw Mark and his before he got his hair styled in a mohawk, he had like the almost kind of like a Bieber look to it. It was kind of funny.
I
I
had
was
long
like, "All right."
skater hair back then.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, Mark, wow, you look like Mark. Wow."
You look exactly as advertised.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
But now
very
I
cool.
can't.
So
Now I can't see you without your mohawk. But it's
that's probably for the best.
yeah.
But yeah, it's good that you're getting back into it. It always
Mhm.
helps me get more into it. Maybe I don't know if we'll have some time this weekend. Maybe we can throw down some cards again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I'll pick up another. You know what? I today after work I picked up a case of Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest. Totally not sponsored, by the way, but like,
I wish we were sponsored.
oh, that would be great if we had sponsors. We could
Brought to you by
split it
Carl's Jr.
50-50 and push
Carl's
Russ to
Jr.
the side.
Brought to you by Carl's Jr. Brought to you.
Brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. Shade Shadow Legends. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I picked up
brought to you by Shady Internet Porn Game.
There you go. That's what we're sponsored by. Yes, Shady Internet
You
Porn
won't
Game.
last 5 minutes listening to dialogue options. No, you probably will. But,
well, especially since we typically go anywhere around 3 hours a night.
Yes.
You will not last 5 minutes unless you're a true fan and you listen to the whole thing. Yeah. But anyway, yes, I picked up Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest. The place that I picked it up from only sells 6-packs of it at like $11.50, but they're pretty tasty, dude. I don't know if you like Oktoberfest beers, but they're pretty tasty.
Yeah, I do.
All right, good, cool. So next time we get together, I'll bring you a 6-pack.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll you get that going on. Throw down some cards. Always good to do some drinking and card playing. It's a great combo.
Yeah.
We still have that case of Coke that you brought in the fridge. I'm partaking in that with some Jack right now.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm also glad to know that I'm not the only one that drinks during streams. High five.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm definitely I'm drinking something always, but yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get that going on. Maybe even next time we play cards, we could try out Commander
Mm-hmm.
because I have
Yeah, I'm interested and
a few
like
decks of this.
yeah, because what you described was really interesting. And when my girlfriend and I went to the card shop, I told the guy that I'm interested in getting a starter deck for Magic the Gathering because my friends are really into it and all that. And he's just like, "All right, do you know how to play?" I was like, "Yeah, my friends taught me how to play. I just want to get a starter deck because I feel like I'm ready to have my own deck." He's like, "All right, cool. Do they play Commander?" I was like, "No, they don't." But yeah, no, like what you described to me with Commander, where it's like one color. I think you said it was, and it was based off of like one card, and it's 100 cards, and
It's not necessarily one color. It could be if you wanted to, but you pick a general for your deck,
yeah.
Commander, if you will, and the color of your deck is dictated by the color of that commander.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if you happen to have a monocolored creature as your commander, then all the cards in your deck have to either be that color or colorless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can only have one copy of each card, right?
Yeah, singleton rules. So one copy of any card with the exception of basic lands, 100 card decks with your commander included in there. Starting life totals 40. So yeah, it's a really cool format. Really
yeah,
popular.
It's an interesting concept, and I think you said it opens itself up to being very different each time you play because you very rarely run into the same card twice.
Right, that's the other thing I like about it. That's why I was telling you that commander deck it's more expensive to build, but you kind of get more mileage out of it because there's so many cards in that deck, and with the singleton rules, you're not always seeing the same thing twice, like you said. So yeah, it offers up a lot of different combinations and different gameplay situations from game to game. So it's a fun format, really popular one.
Right on, right on.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't actually mention what I've been up to lately. I said I was doing something game related right before the stream started.
Were you playing what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. The game you've been playing for like weeks.
No, I wasn't playing that. Actually.
Oh, Bloodborne. You haven't been playing Bloodborne?
I'll get to that. Okay. But what I was doing right before the stream is that I was actually on Limited Run Games website, and because I subscribe to their newsletter so I can see whenever they're coming out with releases, and I just pre-ordered a PS5 game called River City Girls. So
interesting. Well, okay, so explain, because
yeah, it's
the first thing that I think of is like Honey Pop. I don't know why.
I'm not familiar with that, but
it's basically like an anime girl like puzzle, like like Candy Crush, but with anime girls.
It's not that, but it does have anime girls. So it's a spiritual successor to River City Ransom, which came out back on the NES.
Okay.
I might have played that at one point or another. I can't really remember. But the original game was a beat 'em up. And I think the idea of the game was like you play as a guy or a couple guys that they're trying to save their girlfriends who got kidnapped. Well, this is a spiritual successor, and you play as two girls, and their boyfriends have been kidnapped, so you have to go save them. And it was kind of like an impulse buy because I've seen it around, and I watched a review of it to see what it was like, and it looks really cool. I haven't played many beat 'em ups in my day, but I've always thought it was an interesting genre, and it's always great. That kind of thing is always great for multiplayer, and you can do couch co-op, which I like. Yeah, so I decided to buy a copy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, my only foray into like the beat 'em up genre was like the mini game with Tekken 3 and Fighting Force on
Tekken
the
Force.
PS1. Yeah.
Fighting Force. Yeah, I have a interesting history with Fighting Force.
I remember that game being really short but also really fun.
It is, yeah. I have Fighting Force 1 and 2,
Oh, they made a
and
sequel? I didn't
they
even know that.
did. You don't want to play it, no.
Oh, okay. So my nostalgia memory will be unsullied.
Yeah, just play the first one. The first one, it gets really tough and frustrating towards the end, but
Hmm.
it is a short game, so it kind of makes up for it. It's not like it drags on too
Yep.
much. I felt like when I played the first Fighting Force, I played it with a friend of mine, and towards the end, the enemies just took so long to kill, and I just like you're punching the same idiot so many times. I'm just like, come on, like just go down already.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that because like I remember as a kid, I didn't have friends to play that game with because my friends were never really interested in coming over to my house to play my PlayStation. They were like, "Oh no, we got Nintendo 64. We don't care." I was like, "All right, well, I guess I'll
Yeah,
just."
well, to be fair, a PS1 and even like any of the PlayStations have never been known for their multiplayer. So yeah,
Yeah,
because the
so
lack of 4 controller ports,
yeah,
probably.
so I ended up just kind of like playing that by myself, and I just remember yeah, like you said, it just gets real tough because like the enemies just kind of like stand there and block the whole time, and you're just
Yeah,
whittling them down because they're doing nothing but blocking.
it's really annoying, but it's a cool game. I do like it. I definitely got really frustrated with it when I was playing with my friend, and this wasn't childhood or anything like back in the day when it came out. This was maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Hmm.
He came over and we were playing it, and we did beat it. But I remember we got sent back to the beginning once or twice when we were towards the end, and that's always frustrating when that
Yeah, and I
happens.
always thought it was really cool that you could like pick up items and weapons from around the
Yeah,
environment. Like I remember distinctly like the handle holds in the elevator, you could just pry them off the wall or just beat the shit out of people with them. That was a really cool concept.
yeah. Well, but whereas the sequel isn't as much of a beat 'em up. It doesn't have like the kind of
Oh
fixed.
no.
It doesn't have like the as fixed camera angles. It's more of a third person action game,
Hmm.
and it's frustrating to control. It has a lot of cheap crap in there that kills you. Kind of like limited continues, so you're always going back to the beginning of the level.
Hmm.
Just not something I recommend. I remember one level because I was playing it with the same friend. Actually, we actually kind of had like a kind of a hatred for the first Fighting Force because it frustrated us so much when we played it. And so going into the second one, it was like a challenge for us. And I remember there was one level where you're going through these prison hallways, and they all look the same, and you're
Hmm.
going through these things for it's felt like forever, and almost every single room has like a turret on the ceiling that automatically targets you and does huge damage to you, so you just need to be ready to blow that up as soon as you go into the room. Just tedious stuff like that. It definitely strays from the beat 'em up roots of the
Hmm.
original, so just stick with the first one. Don't even look at the sequel.
All right. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so I don't want my like I said earlier, my nostalgia to be sullied.
No, no, just stick with the first one because even though we were getting pissed off at it when we were playing it, it is a pretty fun game.
Oh
It's
yeah.
solid.
Yeah. I mean, you can probably finish it within a couple hours easily.
Yeah, yeah, it's something you can do in one sitting.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I said, I just haven't played a whole lot of games like that, so I bought this one. We'll see how it turns out when it arrives. But it looks cool. Looks like something I'll enjoy.
Yeah.
And yeah, aside from that, last weekend, so you came over and so did Russ,
Mhm.
and we ended the night with me playing Star Fox 64 for the very first time.
Yeah, how did you enjoy that? I've never played it, but I watched you play through most of what I assume was the game. I mean, Russ always told me that it was a
Yeah,
relatively short game, but what did you think of
yeah,
it?
it is. Yeah, so I never played it. I never had it as a kid. It never really stood out to me too much. I've never been a fan of
Mhm.
flying games like that. But I decided, it's a classic N64 game. It's something that I should have and I should try it out. And Russ, raves about it. He loves that
Yeah,
game.
he's real into like the flying simulator
Yes.
games and like the anything where he can fly a ship. He
Yeah.
That's his jam, you know.
If you couldn't tell by his Ace X-Wing 88 and his picture of the X-Wings
And the fact
as
that
his
he's a giant spaceship.
Yeah, so yeah, he likes flying things in games.
Hmm.
So um, just earlier this year, just a few months ago, I was at a game store, retro game store out of town, and I saw it there. I forget, it might have been like 25, $30 or something, I
Hmm.
forget, but I decided, you know what, it's in pretty good shape. I'm gonna buy this finally. I'm gonna have Star Fox 64, and ever since then he's been bugging me to play it. So
Of course.
this was a good opportunity for me to finally crack it open, and it was it was fun. It was interesting. It was a different kind of game. I'm not used to playing that kind of game.
Mm.
Inverted flying controls, which is normal for that kind of game, but it was something I had to get used to at first because I
Hmm.
typically don't play inverted, and you can't change it in the game.
Yeah.
But I did have fun with it. It's very fast paced. The on rails action of it is cool. Wasn't having fun when I worked my way to the end boss and then died and then went back to the beginning of the game. But
Oh.
I was telling you, I think I did make it back to the end boss fight, and I figured out the weakness of the end boss, and I was able to
Hmm.
exploit that and finally kill him and win.
Yeah, I
But
think you were saying that once you figured out his weakness, it almost made the final fight with him kind of a little too easy. It was almost like a formality, right?
um,
Or am I totally off base?
I forget. I forget if I was actually discussing this with you or not. But
Yeah.
once you figure out where to shoot him, it becomes a lot easier.
Hmm.
And then yeah, it's not so bad after that. But before I figured out his weak point, 'cause he has like these two glaringly obvious weak points that you're supposed to shoot. So I was getting my ass handed to me at first because I thought I was supposed to go for those weak points, but he kept guarding them really well, so I
Yeah.
couldn't hit them. And he was hitting me left and right. He was slapping me all around.
Hmm.
But then I found his weak spot that kind of opened him up for attacks, and then I had him at
Hmm.
that point.
Yeah.
But I did have some fun with it. I don't know if I'll return to it. I mean, maybe sometime when Russ is over, and if he annoys me enough, maybe I'll fire it.
I think his ears are ringing right now, going, "No, go back to it again and again. You haven't experienced the full experience of Star Fox
Yeah,
64."
yeah, I know I haven't because there's a whole other set of planets that you have to. There is replayability in the game, even though
Yeah, yeah,
it was short.
that's the thing about that game that seemed really interesting to me because like based off of what you do and how you handle each mission, I think you go to different planets. So
Yeah,
that
that's
just
how it
opens it
works.
up for so much replayability. It is a
Right.
short game. You can finish it within one sitting, but to get the full experience, you've got to like really try to like do those challenges to see everything that the game has to offer to you.
Yeah.
You,
So
it
I don't know if I'll ever be really, if I'll ever take it to that point where
mhm,
I actually
100% complete it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, where I figure out how to access all the planets and get to the other side of the system and go through that route. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but
I'm
it is
sure if
cool
you really
that
wanted
it's
to
in
see it, you could just go on YouTube and look up a 100% completion run of Star
there.
Fox 64.
I did happen to actually trigger one of those events at one point because
Hmm.
there's this one planet where you're fighting this boss and your idiot teammate Slippy Toad flies in there and he's getting slapped around and if he
Flippy.
yeah there's actually a point where so in my first playthrough in the playthrough where I lost at the end
Hmm.
I didn't kill the boss fast enough and he swats Slippy's ship into a nearby planet. So then the next level is you have to go save Slippy.
Yeah.
And in my second run through, the time where I actually beat it, I was able to I knew the boss better, so I was able to kill him really fast, and he
Hmm.
didn't hit Slippy, so I went to a different planet and I got to try that out.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah, it's cool that they did put that in there for the
Yeah, because I
replay.
think I left your house around the time that you were going to rescue Slippy, and I was like, all right, I'm getting real tired. I gotta go.
Yeah, yeah. So that was cool, and there was some variety there because when you go to that planet, instead of being in your starship, the R-wing, you're in a tank on the
Oh,
ground, and
interesting. Cool.
it's still the same kind of style where it's on rails. You're just going forward, shooting lots of stuff, but
Hmm.
it's a different style of play. And when you go to the other planet, when you don't have to rescue Slippy, it's still a tank, planet that
Mm.
you're playing as. So
Cool.
pretty cool game. Glad I had a chance to finally play through it. Glad I have it
Yeah, now you can shut Russ up finally.
for a little while at least.
Now he just needs to play Fallout New Vegas and he'll shut me up forever.
Yeah. And then a few days ago, I beat Bloodborne.
Oh, good. How
Yes,
was that?
it was. It's a great game.
Mm.
It really is. I mean, there are some parts that frustrated the hell out of me, especially like last night. I was tying up some loose ends
Hmm.
after I had already beaten it, and I was doing an optional boss. Long story short, and yeah, that was a very tough battle. But as far as the main game itself goes, yeah, really great in the scope of the whole like Soulsborne series of games.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it really has it all. Yeah, it has great combat, really tight mechanics there, and the atmosphere of the game was you could really feel it just by going through the different areas and learning more about the world.
Hmm.
It's a really engrossing game, and it's pretty incredible how they are able to achieve that, because the Soulsborne games never tell you a direct story. You're kind of left to piece the details together for
Yeah.
yourself.
And that's what I've always found really interesting about like the Soulsborne games, simply because like you said, they never explicitly tell you what's happening around the world. It's on you to kind of like pay attention to the world around you and figure it out on your own. And there's a
Yeah.
really deep story behind them too. Like you can
Oh
sit there
yeah,
and
I know. I'm sure if you went online, you could find people who pieced everything out together, and they could
Mhm.
tell you the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds me of flavor text on Magic cards, how you just kind of get little tidbits here and there, and
Yeah, I always like reading those because they're interesting. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes they're just goofy, but sometimes it's actually it has to do with the lore of the cards they're creating,
Yeah.
and you can kind of get an idea of what's going on in the background based on the art that's on the cards and the flavor text. I always
Yeah.
liked that about
Yeah,
Magic.
world building is always great. I love world building, especially when
Yeah,
it's done right.
yeah, and I'm saying it's such an incredible feat that they make you feel so engrossed in this world, because it, the story is so indirect like that,
Hmm.
and there are only a handful of NPCs that they put in these games that are spread throughout the whole thing, so you can talk to them and learn a thing or two here and there. A lot of the story and things that you learn comes from going into your inventory and reading descriptions of items
Hmm.
that'll tell you more about the world and where that item comes from. And yeah, you just kind of get a sense for what's going on. Sometimes even the environments can paint a picture and tell a tale, and you figure out what's exactly happening there. And that
Hmm.
was definitely present in Bloodborne.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great customization too. I liked being able to give my character runes. I was able to slot these glyphs on my weapons, kind of like materia from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool mechanics that they introduced for that game. I'm glad that I played it.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I mean, I've never heard anything but good praise for, you know, Bloodborne itself. Um, so I think eventually, if I ever get around to getting a PlayStation, I'll definitely have to check that one out. Especially now since I've got Jedi Fallen Order under my belt.
Yeah.
Because I was
Well,
always really hesitant to play a Soulsborne style game because I didn't want to deal with that frustration of constantly dying. But
yeah, and they are harder than the Star Wars game,
mhm.
but it is worth it
Yeah.
if you get past that, and once you get the right weapon equipped and you get a feel for the game's mechanics, and once you get in the rhythm, it's much more enjoyable.
Mhm.
You'll still get your ass kicked many times. You will still die a lot, but it'll be a more enjoyable process. And a lot of the times, like you'll be fighting a boss and you'll get stuck at it, and it's one of those situations where it's just like, okay, just one more run. Like,
Mhm.
let me try this guy one more time. Like, let me try this strategy.
You
Maybe this
never
is
win. You just do a little bit better every time.
but eventually you do win, and the payoff is massive. Like so this optional boss, I'm just gonna tell you about it.
Okay,
'Cause
let's hear it.
I was fighting him last night and the night before. So yeah, in Bloodborne they have these things called chalice dungeons,
Mhm.
and they're honestly they're kind of lame because they're kind of samey, and they just give you an opportunity. It kind of just adds more stuff to do in the game, but it's not very compelling. They could have done a better job with it, but it is cool that they added these things
Mhm.
as like side experiences for players who want more. But I was going into one of these chalice dungeons, and I was just trying to like set myself up for success so that if I ever played the game a second time,
Mhm.
I would be in a better position to pick up more trophies, essentially.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. And yeah, I was fighting this one boss called the Amygdala, and I was in the Defiled Chalice, so my life bar was cut in half, and I had to fight this gigantic monstrosity. Yeah, I was fighting him 2 nights ago. I started probably maybe a little after 10 p.m., thinking it wouldn't take me too much time to kill him,
Mhm.
and there I was defeated at 3 in the morning,
Oof.
still fighting the same enemy.
I feel like we've been there before with our Halo matches where we're just going, "Come on, guys, we gotta get one more so we can get that win and end on a high note." Meanwhile,
Yeah,
it's 4:30 in the morning and we're still struggling to win a match.
yeah, and then last night it still took multiple hours of tries, but I finally
Mhm.
killed it.
Well, good.
And it's just the most intense thing you'll ever experience in a video game is probably fighting a really challenging boss in a Soulsborne game.
All right, so who's more challenging, the Amygdala in Bloodborne or Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts?
I never played Kingdom Hearts, so I
Oh,
can't compare.
okay. So I guess I'm gonna have to be the one that plays through Bloodborne to make that comparison
But
because
even though I haven't played Kingdom Hearts, I could almost guarantee you that the Amygdala is many magnitudes more difficult.
well, Sephiroth is really cheap. His attack is so wide sweeping that you have to go into the corner of the arena just to avoid his attack.
Yeah, well, so is this enemy. This thing has like 8 or 10 arms, and it's the size of a building. So its regular attacks have such a long range, and the really challenging part about this boss battle is that maybe about 80% of the way through the fight, it rips off two of the arms from its back
Hmm.
and uses them as blunt weapons and whacks you with them.
Nice.
So you have this monster that's already massive, and then he extends his reach even further by hitting you with these arms that he's holding in his hands, and it's nuts. And especially since you have half of your normal health bar,
Uh-huh.
most of his attacks kill you in one hit.
I feel like there's a Russism for that situation. Russ, do you have a Russism for that situation?
I hate snipers. Jackal snipers specifically.
All right,
Yeah,
there you go. All right,
going
They're
well,
a boss, aren't they?
going into a fight against the Amygdala is like going into a room of Halo 2 on Legendary filled with 20 Jackal snipers.
So basically, it's just welcome to die.
yes,
Yes.
welcome to die.
Yeah, and I looked up how much health it had this morning just to see how much damage I had to do to finally kill the thing.
Hmm.
And I think online it said it had 22,000 health. To put it into perspective, my weapon that I'm using is a big two-handed sword, fully upgraded with really strong glyphs equipped to it that increase its attack power, and I'm doing a little over 500 damage with each hit.
Oh jeez.
Oh,
So, yeah, yeah.
I feel
That
like
means you
that.
have to hit at least 400 times.
Ah,
Oh my god.
Yeah, so this enemy
you're a
is
masochist.
yeah, that's what I felt like. Yeah, I just I just wanted to do anything else but play that game, but I get into this tunnel vision thing where if I'm fighting a boss, I think of nothing else but killing that boss. And when I play those games solo, and I don't look up any strategies or weaknesses about my enemies to give myself that true challenge. So I just had to figure it out on my own how to kill the damn thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Russ. Did you have something to say?
No, I'm clearing my throat.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, so I just had to tell someone about that boss, and I don't have a therapist, or else I would be telling my therapist about that boss.
All right, and well, Marcamune, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel inadequate. Yeah, so my advice is don't do the chalice dungeons if you play Bloodborne. They're a pain in the ass. At least that one is.
Okay.
That's the real kick in the ass because it cuts your health bar in half, and you're already playing a challenging game. But I think a good place to start, even if you don't have PS4 to play Bloodborne, is I'm pretty sure they have Dark Souls remastered on Xbox.
Well, I can get them all on Steam. I can get.
Oh, okay.
I can get all 3 Bloodborne, or not Bloodborne, Dark Souls games on PC on Steam.
Did they ever put Demon Souls on PC, or is that PlayStation exclusive still?
I don't know. Let me take a look.
Okay, I was gonna say because I started with Demon Souls on PS3, and worked. I've been slowly working my way through the games from that point.
No, there's no Demon Souls on Steam.
Okay, well, most people start with Dark Souls, I think, and that's kind of the classic example. A lot of people love that game. It's a really great one. I played through that one as well. So if you don't need to start at Bloodborne, give Dark Souls a try if you want.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, since, Russell's here, we can finally get started with dialogue options number 11. I am your host, Cobalt Cat. I always forget to, tell people that my name is Cobalt Cat. I always just jump into introducing you guys. So we've been chatting here for a little bit over an hour about, a little bit of Magic the Gathering, a little bit about what we've been doing lately. Finally, Ace X-Wing 88 has landed. Russ?
Oh man,
Yes.
how you been longing to crack out that gem?
What?
Never mind.
What?
Anyway, we already talked about how I beat Star Fox 64.
Oh, now see, I wanted to be here to talk about this. Now,
And
did you talk about...
we are moving on.
No. So,
all right, so
did you tell him what happened at the very end of the first run there, Mark?
He told me everything you ever needed to tell me about Star Fox. Moving on. Actually, no.
There's
Russ, why don't you
allow it?
why don't you go ahead and chat with Mark while I go do something really quick?
Yeah, I do want to hear Russ's take on my Star Fox experience.
All
So
right,
I can
I'll be right
rehash
back.
a little bit to bring Russ up to speed.
Okay. So what did you tell him? I'm curious to hear what you said.
I was basically just telling him what we were doing last weekend. How I went through the game, got to the end boss, and died, and got sent back to the beginning, and then I went through and won. But we were praising it for its replayability with the different planets you can go to depending on what you do and the planet that you're in. And I was telling him how in my first run, I went to the planet to save Slippy, but in my second run, I killed that boss really quickly, so he never slapped Slippy's ship away, so I went to the other planet instead. And I was telling him, generally speaking, I had fun with it. It was a different kind of game for me to play, and it was fun. Got to shoot a lot of stuff. It definitely seems like the kind of game where, and I know that you at least have played many runs through the game.
It's an understatement.
Yeah, many runs. But I got the feeling that since enemies are coming at you in the same kind of pattern, you could get into a good groove where you know exactly what's coming from what angle, and you know what you have to shoot, and you can go for high scores and stuff like that. I remember watching you do that, back when we were like rooming together in school. So, I don't know. Did you said after I got done playing that night that you were gonna go home and play? Did you end up doing that?
I did end up playing, not that night, but the next morning I did.
Okay.
And I wanted to see like because it had been a long time since I had gone through the route that you went through, and
Mhm.
I just kind of wanted to see like, all right, I'll go through and see how I do with it. And it was kind of funny because having beaten the entire Star Wolf team on Fortuna before we hit the Christmas Lights defense station, um, at the end,
Damn
I
Christmas light stage. I couldn't figure out how to freaking hit those idiots because
oh my god.
they were always behind me somehow. I could never get my ship around to actually shoot those idiots.
Well,
Ah,
see, this is one of the things that Star Fox does that it doesn't really hold your hand with. It gives you very kind of cryptic clues as to how to beat how to beat Star Wolf or any adversaries like that. And one of the key things, I think I remember mentioning this at one point, is when you're fighting them and you're trying to get away from them, there's usually a few ways to do it. One is you can break and hit the thing that turns your ship on its side and turn real tightly to get around it, because that's the tightest way you can turn in the game, breaking and turning and going in that direction.
okay.
Or you
I was
can
just trying to lay on the gas the whole time.
or you can loop and get in behind them. And the funny part is that the game's clue for that is that when you do that, there's always a set pattern of who in the Star Wolf team goes after who.
Mhm.
If it's four on four, so like Wolf always goes after you, Andrew after Slippy, Pigma after Peppy, and Leon after
Falco.
Falco. You didn't even get to hear Leon say the best line, "Annoying bird, I'm the great Leon," something like that. So the kicker there is that like when you loop and you're in front of them, you loop behind them, and you hear Wolf go, "What the heck?"
Mhm.
And that's kind of like a clue, like, oh, he was caught off guard by that, and now I can get in behind him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
that
think I
was
tried doing that. I couldn't. I think in order to do that looping move, don't you need to have like full thruster or something?
you do, yeah, yeah. You can't
Yeah.
pull any of the loops or the U turns without full thruster.
Yeah, I
So that
noticed that later in the game. I was thinking like I'm hitting these buttons, but he's not doing like the spin around,
mhm.
get behind him kind of move. What? And then I realized it's because I was thrusting right before that.
Right. So and I was impressed with how you did the first time with it too, because I was talking to Mark about this, Joe, and uh, Star Fox 64 is a game that will set you up to fail your way to the end of the game the first time through you
Mhm.
play it. Because the way it's set up is because how you go from planet to planet in terms of which one you go, either the easy route or the hard route or medium. There's a few of them. Is based off of sometimes how you accomplish certain objectives, or who you save or who you defeat before time runs out.
Mhm.
And in that sense, the game will allow you to kind of fail some of the things that would send you on the harder paths the first time around, but still propel you through the game. And the only thing that was kind of rough that I realized when you got to Andros the first time, Mark, was that the game gives absolutely no clue on how to defeat him unless you had played the original one and knew that you were supposed to shoot his eyes in the end.
Yeah, I didn't do that at all in my first playthrough, and in the second one, I did figure it out after a couple deaths because
Hmm.
I was shooting my lasers kind of wildly, and
Hmm.
I noticed that when it hit his eyes, it made a different sound and it pissed
Yep.
him off. So I was like, okay, this is the strategy, and then that's when I won. But you go into that fight, and he's the floating head with the two floating hands on each side,
Hmm.
and he has these blinking, glowing buttons on the palms of his
Yeah.
hand. So I'm thinking to
Which
myself,
says, shoot here.
yeah, yeah, they he might as well have tattoos on his palms of his hands
No,
saying
that's a
shooting.
fair point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my whole strategy when I first got into the fight was thinking, okay, I gotta go after these buttons. Obviously, they're the blinking things,
Hmm.
but it was really tough to hit them unless you actually pissed him off first by making him lower his defense.
Yeah, and that was the tough part about it, is that, without having kind of prior knowledge of it, or, being really good at the trial and error type of situation, you could definitely hit a frustration wall. And I was like, the first time he went through, I'm like, oh man, he's down to like one or two lives. I hope he gets it. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to ruin it for him. Like, I hope he gets it, or he's gonna have to go through the whole thing again.
Well, there's something to say about really good game design where the hint to how to beat him, Mark, is
Mhm.
just an audio cue that tells you, okay, he sounds like he's taking damage. He sounds like he's
Yeah,
getting pissed
yeah.
off. That's all. That's sometimes that's all you need.
Well, this is a good point too, because I feel like, prior to the 90s, games would give you absolutely no clues as to what's hurting something or not, whether you were doing more damage or not. I wouldn't say not completely, but it wasn't great.
Mhm.
and the difficulty itself was the replayability. I feel like in the 90s, as they were starting to figure it out, that audio cues and color things, like the standard Nintendo thing is, if it flashes red when you've hit it, you've dealt damage to it.
Yeah.
So that's usually that's a dead giveaway for something like that. And yeah, well, the funny part is that once you figure that out, Mark, the fight was over in like 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, it was over quickly.
The one I was waiting to see if you would get is if he was trying to swallow you, that you shoot a bomb down his mouth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, I was trying to use the bombs tactically to do big damage to the buttons on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I only stunned him like that on accident when I
Mhm.
happened to launch a bomb when he was trying to suck me up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was lame, and the chewing animation takes so long.
I
But
know. Oh my god, I dealt with that so much as a kid too. It was like, oh my god, there's got to be an easier way. And I'll be honest with you, when I was a kid, when I was that age when that came out, I was way into like the Nintendo Power strategy guides at the time. So I'd like read all about the game and everything as I was still learning to play through it. So I had the benefit of that. I'm not sure how quickly I would have
Power.
pieced it together at that time, had I not had that.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say is that
Going through it.
you definitely, like, at your second time through the game, as you were getting back to Andros, you were like, you could see a palpable amount of improvement as you went through.
That's good. Yeah, I tried to improve and like remember where things were and remember how to maneuver the ship the right way. And like good example is like when I changed my path and
Mm-hmm.
I went to the train level instead of going to save Slippy because that boss, he gave me trouble the first time around.
Yeah.
But the second time around I knew that even though he didn't have like blinking eyes, his
Mm-hmm.
head was still his weak point. So
Yep.
like I knew to just keep wailing on his head, and I had my aim down, and I was able to kill him really quickly the second time around.
That's probably one of the few games I've played that really rewards you for replaying by allowing you to reapply the knowledge you've now previously learned to get way more ahead of where you previously were in the game. And it does a really great job of that. Like, in terms of replayability, that game is off the charts for me personally.
Yeah,
Um,
and never seeing that game before and never playing that game, that's a concept that I really like about Star Fox 64. Like, just that sheer fact of I'm going back into it knowing what or it's basically learning the game, where you take what your past experiences and you do a little bit better, and that's
and the
really
cool part,
cool.
oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was just agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, the cool part is that, and I still urge you to go. I know you'll probably take a few days off or a little while before you try it again, but I urge you to try it again and kind of, explore some of those little clues or little cryptic areas or like archways that you see. Try flying through or something like that to see what kind of clues you can find. Because
Yeah, maybe next time maybe some other time we could play and you could just point out the stuff, because unless you have some sort of guide, I'm sure a lot of this stuff is difficult to understand.
it is a little cryptic in certain spots. Just wait until you hit the LSD trips that are the warp zones.
Okay. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Oh boy, the colors.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too, because just going back and just watching Mark play that, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to now play it and go for my high score as I usually do. And I do love. What's this?
I said, because of course you do.
Well, I mean, I've been playing that game since I was 8 years old, and I love it to death. I really do. Like, it's one of those games where I could be like, okay, I got an hour. I want to sit down and play some Starbucks and just enjoy myself. And it's always a blast. I love it.
It is nice that to have a game like that. If you don't have a whole lot of time, but you want to play something you really love, I'm gonna fire up Star Fox 64. Because you love flying games.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, my favorite genre is the RPG genre, and it's like, what am I gonna do? Fire up an RPG in 1 hour is barely gonna get me through the tutorial.
I'll play Final Fantasy VII for an hour, and that should be enough.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna barely scratch the surface with Final Fantasy VII.
Good luck.
Especially if it takes you like 20 to 30 hours to complete it. That'll.
Oh, I know.
Let me go for my high score in the first leg of Midgar. Yeah.
I'm curious what you thought of like the aesthetic of the game and like the voice acting of the characters and all that kind of stuff.
I like the way it looked. I think it's a good looking N64 game. Most N64 games haven't held up over the years, but a lot of those like first party Nintendo games, still look pretty good. I did enjoy the look of it and the sound. I like the voice acting. I know you were telling me that this was like one of the first games for like Nintendo games to have voice acting like that, right?
Yeah, it was one of the first ones to have a large amount of voice acting to it. Because I mean, obviously the first one with decent quality to it was Super Mario 64, with Charles Martinet and his wahoos for Mario.
Yeah, that's not
you
even
know
really like speaking. That's just like sound.
exactly.
That's
No,
like Mario in 64 is like Link and Ocarina. They just
Yeah.
make sound effects.
yeah, hut.
Can
So
you do that
yeah.
again?
What's that?
Russ, can you do that again?
One more time, seriously.
Yeah, do that sound. I liked it. No, do it again.
It cut out. Maybe
It
it was
keeps
too
cutting
high
out.
pitched.
Oh, hold on.
No, we're gonna have to hear this in person because it's the mic's just not picking it up.
Yeah,
But
we'll
that's a
record
shame.
it and we'll edit it and post.
point is that if you were an N64 character, that would be your sound effect.
I kid you not, playing Ocarina of Time and hearing his like grunting sound effects when he moves things is the reason why when I move stuff or jump off of like a small ledge that I still make that noise to this day. No, get off something like
Well,
exactly. But the funny part is Star Fox was the first one to have like a really wide range of voice acting, and as such, it's one of the games from that era that like has a lot of personality to it. Like every member of your team has a personality of their own. The bad guy of the game calls you up on the thing that's supposed to be for like the robot pilot of your mothership to call you to give you supplies, and he's like, "Hey, you'll never defeat me." I'm like, "All right, well that's cool. I'll see you in about 5 minutes and blow your face apart."
Yeah, I like how like the villains for such a short game, the villains still find enough time to shit on you multiple times about how your dad is dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I heard Pigma scream "Dad!" Say "Daddy screamed real good" before he died at least 5 metric tons of times.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it, man. You betrayed the dude like 5-10 years ago. That's cool. You don't have to bring it up again.
Yeah, and at the end, you're going towards Andross. She's just like, "Pretty soon, you're gonna be dead, like your dad."
Oh my god.
Hey, didn't you hear your dad's dead?
I mean, it's
the only way they could have reinforced it more is if they would have actually propelled his dead body through space and hit your R-wing with it.
Well, funny you should mention that.
Okay, I clearly didn't see all the planets. Okay.
Yep. You missed an Easter egg.
I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm just gonna say funny you should mention that.
You clearly missed an Easter egg, Mark.
Okay. No Easter eggs. He didn't miss any Easter eggs. He didn't take that path in the game.
Is it N64 or a different game?
No, N64. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, then I'll propel the corpse of him at you, but when you play through it again, I'll show you how to get to the harder path, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because what you played through the end of it there is like not much in comparison to the hard path.
So basically, what he's saying is you barely scratched the surface of the depth that is Star Fox 64.
And the funny part is that like not only like you got a medal on one of the planets, you got a medal on Bowls, that Christmas lights defense station, and you did because you kept all your wingmates alive, and you got over 150 hits for that. Well, the medal system in the game
all
basically
I did was go for the cube.
Well, the cube is part of it was because the thing gave you like 11 hits each time you destroyed one of the nodes on that thing, so it automatically gives you like 110 to start.
Okay.
And the thing is that like every single planet has a hit count for medals. Now, in order to get those medals, you need to keep all your teammates alive, and you need to hit a certain number. Like for example, Corneria is 150 hits, or the Mateo asteroid field is 200.
Okay.
That's the way those work. But once you get the medal on every single planet, it unlocks the expert mode, which like almost doubles the number of enemies in each stage. And if you hit anything, your wing is instantly gone.
Jeez, yeah.
And here's the best part. Fox puts on a pair of shades.
Yeah.
So
okay. Didn't his dad wear shades?
He did. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah, I did have fun with it. Might have to pick it up another time. Even though I had never played it before, I still got this sense of nostalgia from playing it.
Probably
because it looks kind of similar, and has that similar kind of feel as Super Smash Bros. On N64,
Oh, absolutely.
which I played a lot of back in the day on the N64, and I liked playing at Star Fox, and his level was one of my favorite levels to play on. So,
Oh, you didn't get to see Sector Z yet. That's right.
well, I mean, it's just in Smash Bros. You just fight on the Star Fox spaceship. You know?
Oh, you do, but in the background is this big reddish yellow Z.
Yeah, I saw it on the solar system map. It looked
Mhm.
familiar. That's what's in the background of the Smash Bros. Course. But
Yep.
I mean, just seeing that ship crawl across the screen at the beginning of the game, and
Oh, yeah.
the music playing, it brought me back to those N64 days and playing Smash Bros. With the guys and all those good times.
Well, it brings up a good point because Smash Bros. Was, I think, for a lot of people, was an entrance into different Nintendo franchises if they didn't know about them. Like, I didn't know about Legend of Zelda prior to playing Smash Bros. When I
That's
found out
crazy.
about it, I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then next thing you know, I played the entire series.
Yeah, and then there's
There you
me
go.
as a PlayStation kid going over my cousins to play Super Smash Bros. And the only Nintendo properties that I was aware of was Mario and Pokemon. So then when I
Yeah.
saw like Kirby and Yoshi and all that stuff, I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I mean, Donkey Kong, basically like King Kong, but with a tie, you know. All right, cool.
Samus, this guy looks really cool.
Yeah, this
I
guy's
got a
pretty
funny
sweet.
surprise for you.
This guy looks like he has some hairy pits there. He's looking like a guy to go to the bar with.
I bet he's
Oh
got
my
a really
God.
thick beard under there.
Uh-huh.
Definitely all
mean,
those things.
It's funny too because I know, one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is like difficulty in video games, but Star Fox was one of the early ones to have a difficulty setting.
Mm.
The expert mode was way more difficult than the main game. So,
Well, Russell, we're not ready to talk about difficulty
I know
settings.
we're not, but I know. I'm just saying.
Hey, we could segue. We've spoken about Star Fox enough. It's
Yeah.
It's
Well,
it's
yeah,
a good
I
time
mean-
to start talking about this.
Yeah. All right. So then let's then move over the conversation to difficulty settings, and then we'll talk about. I guess we can talk about Invincible afterwards. I'm excited to talk
We can
about.
talk about Invincible now if you want.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
no,
you
I'm
guys
really.
know what I'm not gonna.
I'm really excited to talk about Invincible because I really
it.
fucking like that show. It is. I think it was really good.
Yeah, you're gonna have to lead the conversation because I watched it a month or two ago, and I watched all 8 episodes over the course of one weekend. So
Mhm.
it was all really quick, and I need to like a refresher on some of the details. But
Yeah. So
I really enjoyed it.
yeah. So Mark, you turned me on to it. I want to say maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago when we
Yeah,
hung
I
out
was
and watched
recommending it to you.
when we watched Doom. Almost
Yeah.
almost like 4 weeks ago. Yeah. And so after we watched Doom, maybe a couple days after that, my girlfriend and I watched the first, I want to say like 2 or 3 episodes,
Mhm.
and I was hooked right
Yeah.
after like the end of episode 1, and it
I
gets
told you, right?
it gets fucking gruesome and dark, and it was funny because like I remember me and my girlfriend were just sitting there watching it, and it just gets to the part where
No spoilers.
full spoilers, everyone. Omni-Man just fucking just like decimates everyone, and my girlfriend was just sitting there with her hands up like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh my god.
I like how throughout the first episode they sort of start to build some of those superheroes up,
Mhm.
like they're gonna have arcs that go somewhere, like they give them some personality.
Yeah,
And
and
then
they
they're
just
completely
fucking
discarded.
tear them down piece by piece, some of the characters. Yeah. Quite literally.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
it
and,
was
like-
brutal.
Yeah. So I really liked it. I thought it was really engaging, and I loved the story arc of watching Mark, the character of Indestructible. Right?
Invincible.
Yeah. I keep doing this. I keep calling him a different name. Invincible. Yes. So Mark as
You text me
Invincible.
later. You're just like, "Hey, I want to talk about Immortal on this stream."
Yeah, like yeah, we were.
What is this, some kind of store brand show? What are you watching?
Mom, can we watch Invincible at home? We have Invincible at home.
Yeah. So like Mark is invincible, right? Yeah. Yeah. Mark is invincible.
Mark Grayson
Is
right?
a really like endearing character. I think honestly he's the best character in the entire show, like hands down best character. And
Mhm.
I don't know, Omni-Man is a really great like villain because he's very relatable too. Even though he's basically like a Superman clone and he's literally just Superman,
Yeah.
but voiced by J. Jonah Jameson.
State Farm guy.
I want pictures of Spider-Man. Also, fuck all of the superheroes. This is Earth. This is my planet. Yeah, like because I think it was after episode 3, I went to work and I was just like thinking about it and like, you know, when you're just like kind of like doing shit and all of a sudden you're just hit with a moment of inspiration and I was just like, oh my god, he's trying to conquer Earth. And I was just like, I called up my girlfriend in the middle of my shift and I was just like, listen, we need to talk about this right now. And she's like, okay. Go ahead.
We need to talk. And then she starts sweating about Omni-Man.
And she's yes, okay, let's talk about Omni-Man. And I was like, he's trying to conquer Earth. And I've really liked like the little like hints throughout the show that they drop of him like especially I think it was like episode 5 or 6 when Omni-Man and his wife are like on a date to Rome and he sees the Julius Caesar impersonator and he makes the comment of like, oh wow, Julius Caesar, the world's greatest conqueror, you know, turned to this a common street, you know, attraction. And lo and behold, he's there to conquer Earth.
Yeah, this guy's just even the real Caesar in his prime just seems like a peasant compared to his power.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know how much of the plot I'm gonna be able to recant about like what I liked and what I didn't like. But I tried talking with my girlfriend about it last night after we finished it. I'm just gonna like full disclosure, I loved it, but she fucking hated it.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Why?
so like I was trying to like pick her brain about it last night and the more and more we talked about it, the more angry she would get. It was kind of funny, like because I was like, all right, so
I wonder what she would think of that statement, but okay.
well, she's probably listening right now. She's probably going like,
Exactly.
just tell them about the characters. Tell them about because like she was telling me all of the characters didn't really seem like they had much depth. And honestly, if you're listening, go ahead, type in the chat or like just text me. Just tell me things that you want me to say because like I don't know if I can quite articulate it based off of just memory. But anyway, so like the one character she just absolutely detested was Damien Darklight, the demon detective. And like when she heard demon detective and he was literally just basically like Hellboy but worse, she's just like, wow, that's really dumb.
I think the show is meant to be kind of tongue in cheek. I mean, the heroes that they introduce in the first episode,
it's basically the Justice League.
It's the Justice League, and
They get obliterated.
like you were saying, Omni-Man's pretty much Superman.
Yeah, and then they have like she said demon detective. Yeah, so like it was it's basically like the Flash and Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be kind of like over the top and like you know where they're coming from, you know what they're getting at, kind of thing. And yeah, some of the stuff is just, I don't know, goofy by nature maybe.
Yeah. But you know what? That's what I really like about Robert Kirkman's writing is he really knows how to do like shock value, but then also when it comes to like character stuff, he's really good with the character development. Oh, the one she just texted me. She's like, the one thing that really like set her off was at the end of episode 8.
Yeah.
The end of episode 8 where they where Cecil takes Mark into like the big white room and he goes,
Yeah.
oh, take a look at this. And he's like, what? I don't see anything. He's like, all right, turn off the lights. And then this like an offhanded explanation is like, oh yeah, what you see here is completely invisible to, there he goes in the chat, invisible to people who because there's a special chemical in the water that becomes invisible to certain specific light frequencies. And I was just like, all right, that's really dumb, but like that just like fucking set her through the roof. And like she's My girlfriend is like one of those people that is just really difficult to annoy and really difficult to make angry. She's very incredibly patient and she's like an amazing person. But like this show was like the one thing that like set her off. I don't know. Like she said she okay, so she's one of those people that really doesn't like predictable TV shows and movies, and I think this was one of those shows that was very like tropey and predictable. And
Okay.
that's why she didn't like it.
Don't watch the last season of Game of Thrones.
But well, no, maybe she should watch
I
the
don't know
last
if that
season of Game of
relates.
Thrones
I don't know,
because
I don't know
like
if the
that was completely out of left field to the point where people were going, "Where the fuck did that come from?"
Yeah, well, that's another topic entirely. But
Mhm.
I enjoy the story of Game of Thrones. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I did enjoy the show. I mean, they only had 8 episodes to work with, so
Mhm.
there aren't too many super deep characters.
Well,
But
look what they need to mimic even a fraction of our power, Mark.
yeah, yeah, I love the meme. I like the one where it's
You
it's
need
like
to think, Mark.
it's it's like what's it called? Did you see the meme where it's like it shows a picture of a woman's purse, and then it shows Omni Man pointing and at it shows him pointing at the purse, and he's talking instead of talking to Mark. It's like a picture of some cargo shorts. It has that caption. Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power. That got me.
Well,
But
I was trying to look through like memes last night, and I basically just got a lot of like the Spider-Man stuff. Where just like these are my people, and then it's like the part where J. Jonah James just starts laughing.
yeah, but I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was too tropey, which is like part of why I liked it, because Omni Man's kind of like the Superman of the world,
Mm,
and instead of being this like paragon of justice, he has his own motives, and
yeah,
he kills the good guys.
yeah.
And even like the date, like the relationship, the dating trope, like you might think, oh, okay, Invincible's going to spend the whole season trying to get the redheaded chick,
Hmm.
when in reality he was with that other girl
The whole
for
time,
throughout
yeah,
most of the season, and it's like, as the viewer, you kind of want him to end up with the redheaded chick.
yeah. I mean, to be
Yeah,
honest, like, I didn't really like what's her face? Not the redheaded chick, but the girl that Mark
his
ends up
first girl,
dating.
yeah,
Yeah, like I
girl.
didn't really like her because, I mean, I get the whole like thing of setting them up to be like dating, and then out of nowhere when he goes to go like, oh, but I'm invincible, and then she goes, yeah, I kind of figured you're a superhero. Doesn't matter because
Yeah,
you're still a dick, and I was just like, well, yeah, but like, come on. And I
he's
was
out
even
there risking his life.
yeah, and I was talking with Grace about it, and it was just she was like, yeah, well, like at the very least, Mary Jane with Spider-Man was like, all right, yeah, I get it. Like this is something bigger than the both of us. I get it.
Yeah, you go do your thing.
Yeah, go do
Yeah,
your
but yeah,
thing.
that girl in Invincible, she kind of reminded me. I think I mentioned this before. She reminded me of Skylar from Breaking Bad, Walter White's wife.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I
Yeah,
mean,
I hated
definitely.
that character in Breaking
Oh
Bad.
yeah, I don't think you're supposed to like Skylar.
No, no, I hated her, but
Mm.
yeah, she kind of reminded me of that. Like, come on, give the guy a break. Why are you on his case this much?
Yeah, like she was just like one of those people that was very phony and very fake because she was all about like helping people and taking care of the less fortunate, but then she's incredibly selfish and only really cares about herself when it gets down and dirty, and that's when you really see like the true character as herself when she's dealing with Mark and going, well, I knew you were a superhero, I know you're going out and risking your life and you're getting the literal fuck beaten out of you, but you should have told me, and that's why you're a dick.
Yeah, so we'll see. But the end of the last episode, I remember, made me really excited for season 2, because they're
Mhm.
just kind of transitioning from scene to scene and showing you all these
Yeah, no, and
threads that
like
they can tug on.
the thing that I really liked about it, and they devoted an entire episode to it, was him basically setting up his nemesis unwittingly with Titan, the dude that turns into like rocks. and he's
Okay.
just like offhandedly like introduced really early on in like maybe like the first episode as just like a regular goon, and then
Mhm.
he ends up just being like one of those guys that goes, "Please help me. I'm not a bad guy. Like I just do bad things because I have to for my family." And he tricks Mark into like help fight on his side, and then it's all
Yeah.
just a ruse. And I've really liked the fact that like they pulled the rug out from underneath you. Like,
Yeah, that's another thing that is also different from the typical trope.
mhm.
He helped the guy out, and turns out he got betrayed, and it bit him in the ass.
Yeah, so I honestly I'm really looking forward to watching and seeing what they do with season 2. I mean, I'm even like to the point where I'm interested in just checking out the comics and seeing
Yeah.
what's going on with the comics, because I hear that the comics are miles and miles more dark than the actual show.
Yeah, it could be. And
Yeah.
comics finished years and years ago, so it's all
Mhm.
out there.
Yeah. I mean, I love Kirkman's, Walking Dead comics, so I'm very interested to see what he did with Invincible.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Mhm. Yeah. And I'm also looking forward to watching it by myself.
Yeah, you could watch with us.
Bad face.
Because I know my girlfriend's probably not going to want to watch it unless she feels bad about, not liking it. I'm sure it gets even better, but like you said, it's definitely one of those shows that's supposed to be referential, it's supposed to be tongue in cheek, but I think it was just too corny and too predictable for her, and it was just too on the nose, and I get that.
Happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we summed that up pretty nicely. It's a good show, and if you're listening to this podcast, unless you're Joe's girlfriend, check out Invincible. It's on Amazon Prime.
It's only 8 episodes, 45 minutes each. You can do it in a weekend if you really wanted to. Really good. I highly recommend it, especially if you like superhero stuff.
And I don't like superhero stuff, and I enjoyed it.
Mhm. Yeah. If you
Sounds
like
like 6 hours of torture. No, I'm
a
just kidding.
dark storyline where it's basically like worst timeline where Superman is the bad guy, and you don't know it. And
There you go. It's like if you took Justice League from back in the day, that old cartoon, and put it on Adult Swim today, or something.
murdered everyone.
Ripped it a new one.
There you go.
Look at how meaningless these lives are, Mark. As
Yeah,
he's
as you grab
flying
someone's
through,
face and
yeah,
crush
he
it.
crushes him through a train
My
as
God.
as like gore and blood
Grinder.
and everything is flying everywhere all over the place.
Oh my
It's a
God.
fun show. It's very fun. It's all
Oh,
shock
God.
value at that point, and you get desensitized to it after a certain point, but it's still really fun. It's a fun time. I recommend it. 10 out
I
of 10.
also recommend it. But you guys ready to talk about some difficulty in video games?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about it.
Let's
So,
do it.
what's the main draw for the difficulty discussion?
Well, there's been a debate lately about whether or not all games should have an easy mode. So I was just wanted to discuss that with you guys and see where you fall, and get your perspective. So
All right.
yeah, did you want to start, Joe?
Yeah, so it's funny that you brought this up earlier in the week when I was trying to just get ideas for a topic for today, and when you said difficulty in video games, I was like, all right, yeah, let's go for that, because the thing is, I understand having different difficulties in video games as a way to make it more accessible to a wider audience, because the thing, and I know I'm probably going to go off a ton of tangents and have unfinished thoughts here, but back in the day when I used to play video games, I always set games to easy mode because I just wanted to experience the story as a kid, and I didn't want to get too frustrated, and I hated picking up games that didn't have an obvious way of like changing the difficulty, or games that just had one difficulty and it was just the game, because then I was like, all right, well, I know I'm never going to finish this game. Like, case in point, months ago when we talked about video game tie-in movies, we talked a little bit about Star Wars the Phantom Menace. It was
Yeah.
a game that came out on the PlayStation way back in the day when Star Wars Phantom Menace came out. And while it's not really like a super difficult game, it's still one of those games that I've never finished legitimately without using cheat codes in my entire life, because it just didn't seem like it had a very, and I'm probably like, I probably didn't look in the options well enough, but I don't remember that game having a difficulty setting, and if it did, it was very, very indistinguishable. No.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, a lot of the times with those older games, I know definitely PS1, you would
Mhm.
have to go to the options and actually find the difficulty mode and make sure like you save that in your settings and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and watching videos from other YouTubers, one YouTuber that I follow and I mention him very often is a YouTuber called Rags, and he talked about a while back with like the Gamergate stuff, and when around when Cuphead came out, there was a review of Cuphead that came out where the games journalist couldn't even finish, you know, the tutorial of
Heard
Cuphead.
about this, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then with Doom Eternal when that came out, and they had a like very easy mode, and I can understand why they would put out very easy and like handholdy game modes, because like sure it's for the audience of people that maybe is brand new to video games, or just they're not very experienced with this specific genre of game, and so they want to go in and try to enjoy the story, and I get that. But surprisingly, I'm also a fan of just playing it on normal mode and get the intended difficulty of the game, because that's usually what I go for when I play games anymore, is just go in, play it on normal. Unless I'm going in for a challenge, I typically don't go for anything more difficult or any easier, because I don't
Yeah, I
know.
typically play on normal, but every now and then I step it up to hard.
Yeah, but like the thing is though, going the opposite direction, playing it easy or very easy, or even like story only, because I remember when I tried to do my playthrough of The Witcher 3, there was the option to play story only difficulty, where it was basically just it's so easy that you go in and just try to enjoy the story.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that,
Okay.
to be honest.
I
And
mean,
I
you
don't know
you
if that's
also gave up the game after like an hour. So.
right, right. But like, I don't know
Wouldn't
if
you like
that's
that very
necessarily.
easy mode there?
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take, because like I just feel dirty just thinking about playing a game on very easy.
Where you're gonna shred through it.
Yeah, where it's almost like
It
playing
almost
the
like
game as an
insults your gamer pride.
yeah, it's almost like an afterthought, where you go through the game and just like it basically just, it's like the participation medal mode, where you just do it and you finish it and you get your participation medal, you know, like, because I understand like some people just aren't video gamers, they're not very good at games, and I get that, and I understand why they put those modes in there, but as someone who is an avid gamer, as someone who, you know, plays multiple genres of games, I don't feel comfortable, and it's almost like what you said, it's almost like an insult to, you know, my gamer cred, as like to play a game and on anything less than normal. And
Yeah, it's like when you put it on that setting, it would be like putting a billboard outside the highway saying, "My name is this, and I play on
my
easy
name is
mode."
Cobalt Cat, and I am trash at games. But no,
Oh my
jokes
God.
aside, jokes aside, like there's absolutely no shame, and this is like just a me problem, honestly. If you play games on like easy or very easy or like beginner, like cool. I'm glad for you, because I'm glad you get to enjoy, honestly, the best medium of storytelling out there. You get to be part of the community that is us. Honestly, I think it's the most accepting community. But
Well, it can be.
it can be. But I personally just feel very dirty playing games that easily. And
Yeah, I get
it's
that.
I don't know. I don't know why. I just don't know why.
I Yeah, I'm with you there. Where I typically play on normal, but yeah, one of the that's one of the things that would get me if I lowered it down to anything below that. I mean, most games, normal is a fine difficulty setting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wish it was a little bit tougher because I don't know, maybe I'll go through a game and realize I didn't even die a whole lot or experience too much of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I would feel guilty about dropping it down to easy. But as you said, it's kind of like a personal problem because I remember we were talking. I was talking to our friend Justin, who was on an earlier episode. I can't remember if we spoke about this on the episode or outside of it, but yeah, he casually told me that he was on a playthrough of Horizon Zero Dawn, and he just wanted to play through the game for the story, so he played it on the easiest setting just to power through it.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays just as many games as the rest of us. He's been playing, I would imagine, like his whole life, I think.
Yeah.
And he's really good at games, but he went through that on easy just because he wanted to see the story, which makes a lot of sense.
And like I said, absolutely. If because I know it's difficult when people just don't have time to sit down for 40 hours or however long it takes to experience a full game and really grind through it and really challenge themselves. Sometimes you just want to sit down and almost I don't,
unwind.
Yeah,
with the game.
Yeah, but like
without having like the actual difficulty of having to like get frustrated because you can't.
You don't want to be challenged. You just want an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like watching a movie. I'm not challenged by watching a movie.
Right. Where it basically just becomes an interactive movie where you just go in to enjoy the experience. And that's fine. If that's what you're going into the game for and you just want to enjoy the story, absolutely. Yeah. Do it. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, just for you personally, you feel dirty. I get that. I do. I know how that feels. And I think I'm going to create a rule for myself that if I'm ever playing a game that's like the PS1 N64 generation and before that, then I might just set it to easy mode because even though like it's hit and miss, like some of the games in that generation are doable. You can beat them without experiencing an incredibly significant challenge where you have to redo the same thing over and over again before you can beat it. But I think I might make that a rule for myself where I'll just play it on easy because a lot of those games from back then, easy mode is comparable to normal mode now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the thing is with games of that generation, there really wasn't too much to them, so, like, the thing that extended their playtime was the difficulty.
Yeah.
Like I talked about with Star Fox having an expert mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and personally, I really don't enjoy having to redo things multiple times in games.
Mm-hmm.
I like it when games have fair checkpoints or they have a nice difficulty level that I can actually beat something on my first try while still feeling challenged. Like I actually had to try to do something, but I was able to do it on my first go at it. I really hate dying and then being sent back really far, and that's not so prevalent nowadays, but back then with those older games like with Star Fox 64, I got to the end boss, which didn't take long, but it was still a pain to die and have to go back through all the levels I had already seen.
That's the consequence. That's your punishment for not being good at the game. And yeah, like with games like Resident Evil, like the old school Resident Evils where if you died, there was no checkpoints. You just go back to your most previous save, and if you're someone
you created your own checkpoints in Resident Evil.
Right, and so like with me, where I don't like saving in Resident Evil unless I'm going to shut the game off, I usually will lose hours of playtime because I got insta-killed by a hunter or something. You know what I mean?
I think you came over here a couple years ago, and I had a game night where I had a bunch of guys over, and I had the
Oh yeah, I
PS
remember that.
Classic set up, and I think you were trying to blow through the first Resident Evil, and
I was asleep in a chair in that room.
Yeah, I was trying to do a speed run of the Chris campaign, and I got
Oh my
maybe
God.
like 2/3 of the game, and I just got insta killed by a hunter, and I was just
no,
like, you
those
know what?
hunters are a pain
Fuck
in the
this
ass.
game.
Meanwhile,
Yeah,
I'm
they
asleep with
jump in
like
the air
my.
and slash your head off.
hmm
Oh my God.
That's like the most common way for me to die in Resident Evil is just to get
You're not
insta
alone
killed
there.
by a hunter, and it ruins
Yep.
my speed run every time.
Yeah. And then it makes you second guess yourself too. Like, oh, I can hear the screech of the hunter. I'm gonna be fighting hunters here. I'm kind of dark caution. Should I be using an herb? Am I low enough that I'm gonna trigger the one hit kill?
Well, like the thing, and this is gonna be a discussion about game mechanics in a fucking Resident Evil game, but like I think the hunter insta kill animation always triggers if you're anything less than green fine in Resident Evil 1.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Alright.
like if
I
you're
was
yellow
always-
caution or below, they can insta kill you. That's
I
what
was
triggers
always
it.
I was always curious about like how often that would happen. Like,
hmm
if there was a greater chance when you were in danger compared to caution, like how low you had to be to actually get one shotted.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it very well might
it's
be
yellow
caution.
and below. Yeah.
Yeah,
So in
alright.
the original
I
Resident Evil,
always heal up when I'm fighting those hunters.
yeah. So if you're playing the original Resident Evil, yellow fine, you're gonna die, and in remake, it's yellow caution, you're gonna die, and
Yeah.
and it's I think it's within like 2 or 3 paces. If you're farther than 2 or 3 paces, that also is because they're trying to close the gap.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
their AI is trying to close the gap, and so if you're like anywhere between like 2 to like 6 or 7 paces away from them, they're gonna trigger that animation and they're gonna fucking take your head off.
Oh yeah, and you're not hitting them when they go for that attack either.
No, you're
Because they
done.
they jump so high they look like fucking Latrell Sprewell from NBA Street.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you hear that screech, you hear them go and you're done. Game over.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the
Oh my
sound of you rolling it back. You're going to your left
That's the
typewriter.
sound of you going back to the beginning of the game and going, Forrest, no. Oh, Barry. Where's Barry? I'm sorry, but he's probably... No. Can you tell I've played that game way too many times?
They're
Yes.
really effective against living things.
What is it?
Yeah,
It's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things. I think you should have it.
yeah, but yeah.
boy.
I love the voice acting in the
Oh
first
yeah,
Resident Evil.
it's shitty, but it's endearing.
It's amazing. You have to experience it once in your life.
Mhm.
But even the original Resident Evil games, I would say that they have a fair difficulty because I mean I played those games as kids, and even when I wasn't using cheat codes, I was fine with the difficulty there
Mhm.
and the typewriter system. But
Yeah.
some games from that generation are really punishing, where there are a lot of opportunities to die for cheap ways, and then you get sent back really far. And that's mainly what I'm talking about there.
hmm Yeah,
But
I
I
mean,
always thought that they were pretty generous in Resident Evil with the typewriters.
yeah, and especially since, like you said, you can kind of create your own checkpoint, and they're very generous
Yes.
with the amount of ink ribbons, especially in the
Yeah, you
early
get
game.
enough of those. So,
Yeah, and
I mean,
then
typically I'll save whenever I get to a new typewriter, and then like if I complete something key, like I get the items that I need, or I know I'm about to fight a boss, I'll save again.
right, yeah. But I like I said, I can't tell you how many times I've made it back to the mansion in Resident Evil 1, and it gets to the part where the hunters all over the mansion.
Hunters are populated. Yep.
Yep. I
I'm
also
just picturing that hallway outside the art gallery.
no, I'm picturing the very first hallway after you come up from the basement area with the second Book of Death or Book of Doom,
Uh-huh.
and you're
Wait,
about
is this remake we're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the OG Resident Evil where you get in the Book of Doom, and
Okay.
you get the second one, or no, you get the first one in the underground, no, you get the first one in the mansion, and then you get the second one in the underground passage to go to the laboratory. So when you get the first Book of Doom, but that's Book of Doom 2. Yeah, yeah, or at least I think it's Book of Doom 2. Anyway, so you get it in the mansion. You come up from the basement area, and then you go to the initial hallway where you see the first zombie, and there's that one hunter there, and it's just far enough away that if like you know it's there, so you start shooting at it, but like if your health is low enough, it'll just
Oh yeah,
it'll tank the hits, and then it'll close the gap, and it'll take your head off, and it's game over.
I'm quite familiar with that corridor. There's no room for maneuverability unless you actually go to the square part where you see the first zombie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've died in that location on several occasions, and it's ruined my run every time.
Yeah, it can be a bastard. But
no, you're right. The difficulty in like the Resident Evil games, it's fair, it's balanced. You know what you're gonna get with Resident Evil, but like other games where it's just like you said, it's so punishing to the point where like if you make one mistake, it's GG.
Yeah, and it's not all of them. There are reasonable games from that generation where you can play on normal or put up with the regular kind of difficulty, but yeah. That generation and before that is when you would really see that, and that always just really dug into me. Like,
there was no mercy whatsoever.
Yeah, like
No,
with
when you
Crash
have to
Bandicoot.
replay.
I remember when I was going
Yeah.
through my playthrough of Crash 1 when the
Oh, that's
remaster,
the toughest one.
Yeah, when the remaster came out, I was like, I have to at least finish this one,
Yeah.
And I remember just going through the one level where it's you go on the bridge or whatever.
Yep.
You can either do it the way that the developers intended it, and it's really fucking hard, or you can cheese it and you can run along the side. Yeah.
Yeah, I played through the original 3 Crash games for the first time when I was in college.
Oh,
with
I remember that.
Yeah, our good friend Dan, because I never really played the games a whole lot as a kid, because I never played a whole lot of platformers in general as a kid. I've always sucked at platformers, but I would watch my older brother play the Crash Bandicoot games. Always thought they were really cool. So when I got older, I decided, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm actually going to play through all these games. So that's what I did, and it was super challenging. But 2 and 3 were easier after playing the first one, but a lot of continues there. Those 2 bridge levels, the slippery slope level at the end there.
Yeah, that level is completely punishing, and it's not even like to the point where you die constantly. It's you just lose all of your progress. I remember the one level where I think it was where you're trying to climb a tree, and you just lose all of your progress because you don't time a jump properly, and you go all the way back to the start.
You have to spin those platforms and then jump on them before they spin back around.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that is really frustrating. But I got through the games. I'll probably never play them again. But I'm glad that I did that and I was able to have that experience.
Gotcha.
But yeah, stuff like that. And some games are even more punishing. It's just annoying. So I am for games having story-focused modes. And it's something that I have been noticing in games lately. Like, a couple months ago, I got the most recent Ratchet and Clank game for PS5, and there was actually a difficulty setting. It was a story mode, and in the description it said you cannot die in combat. So I thought that was really cool, especially considering.
I don't know. I feel like that's taking it a step too far, where they remove all of the challenge of the game.
Well, I think it's a cool option to have in there. I mean, obviously, like I said, I still picked normal mode. I was fine with that, but I thought it was cool seeing that, especially because for an action platformer, it's heavy on the action side, so there's not too much risk of dying in the platforming sections of the game.
I don't know. Like, I feel like the way a game should be balanced, and even like, so let's take a game like Fallout New Vegas, right? You can set it to very easy, but like as you go through the game, it still kind of ramps up in difficulty, where like basically by the time you get to the end of the game, it almost feels like you might be playing it on the difficulty higher, right?
Okay.
So like the way I kind of look at difficulty is almost like it builds you up. So like you're going through multiple playthroughs of a game. So if you're playing, let's just say, for example, if Star Fox had multiple difficulties, right? And you go through and you set it to very easy with Star Fox 64, and it starts you off, and it basically just it hands you half of the game with like you're drooling no minimal effort, right? And then it slowly starts to ramp up, and by the time you get to the final boss is about as difficult as it would be to play on the next difficulty level. And then it slowly builds you up from there on. So then you go, okay, so if I can beat it on very easy, I can play it on easy, right? And so then it takes you through, and then you go through, play easy all the way to normal, to hard, to very hard, to expert, to professional, whatever. You know, that's kind of like how I look at difficulty settings. Like if you're struggling with normal difficulty, absolutely feel free to turn the difficulty down to easy and then work your way up. Like I see it as kind of like a practice mode almost. If that kind of makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that's where my opinion differs from yours, because I view these difficulty settings as a great way for people who don't play games to be able to play games that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to experience.
Yeah.
And where I'm coming from, specifically going back to this Ratchet and Clank example, specifically with this one, you know, Ratchet and Clank, it's the kind of game that those games have looked like Pixar movies for years now. They look great, and it's pretty, I'd say, obvious to say that they could appeal to a younger audience for that reason, because they look like those kinds of movies. But I can imagine a really young kid who goes and sees a Pixar movie, and then they see this game and they think, oh wow, this looks like something that I would like. And they play it, and it's just
freaking throttled.
Yeah, they can't do it even on like an easy mode where there is some challenge. It just might just lock them out of having that experience. And I like that these difficulty modes for that purpose, because over the years, video games have evolved so much as an art form.
Yeah.
And I think this wouldn't have made much sense a few decades ago, when video games were there mainly for the gameplay.
Yeah.
And a big part of the game was it required skill to play it, and you had to conquer it. But over the years, games have developed into so much more, and you know, there's so many games you can play just for the story in them. I mean, yeah, if you go back a few decades, sure, there are games that have, of course, stories. There's nothing new there, but you know, you get what I'm saying. You know,
no, I understand.
No,
nowadays,
yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for the very easy mode in Metal Gear Solid 1, as a kid playing through Metal Gear Solid 1, I had to play it on very easy because honestly, I just was real shit at that game. Notwithstanding the really clunky, you know, mechanics of just you know, maneuvering around in the game world. But like, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. But like, part of me almost goes, you know, get good at the game. You know, like,
I mean, that's what we grew up with, but
yeah,
it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And I think a good way for some people to be introduced to games is by having those training wheels on, where you have a mode like this where, say, you just can't die in combat, or it's so easy that dying is unlikely even if you're not skilled at the game.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I like that as an onboarding.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm necessarily building a straw man, but like, I'm afraid that like that would kind of not encourage people to then push themselves to make it to, or try to attempt a higher difficulty setting, because then they go in and say, oh wow, okay, so that's the story mode difficulty, I can't die in combat. Okay, so then they go to the next game they play. All right, cool, I'm just gonna play the game, and I'm gonna play it on the easiest absolute difficulty that I can possibly play and just enjoy the story. And then, like, yeah, you get to enjoy the story, but you don't kind of feel that same satisfaction after finishing it on a higher difficulty setting. You know what I mean?
I think that's going to be a personal preference. I think some people will just want to play a video game specifically for the experience and to see the story and to have fun playing the game. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, like we're saying, back in the day when we were, just getting into video games, we would play on easy mode, right? We would drop it down to easy. So eventually we got more experience with games and we decided to play on harder difficulties. So the same thing could definitely happen with folks if they start off playing on some sort of story mode based difficulty setting. Eventually they could think to themselves, okay, well, I've been playing video games for years now. I have a really good grasp on this stuff. I want to see what normal mode is like. I want a bit more of a challenge. So you could still get that same kind of flow to your gaming career if even with the existence of these.
Well, that's a fair point. I mean, I kind of have a few opinions about that kind of stuff. I mean, both of you guys grew up primarily PlayStation players, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because having grown up as a Nintendo person, especially with like the N64 being the main centerpiece system of my childhood, the majority of the games didn't always have a difficulty setting to start. I'd say that because I mean, you take a look at a game like Mario Kart 64. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can pick from all three, 50cc, 100cc, 150cc, which is essentially your difficulty because of the speed of it. But you work your way through them because that's basically how you complete the game. But the concept of we're going to design a level that just shows you a small amount of the basics and then build you out further and further as you go was a big concept in a lot of Nintendo games back from that era. Like even with us talking about Star Fox, after having gone through the training mode, Corneria is a pretty easy level to get started with. It can be as difficult as you want it to be, or it can be as easy as you want, because oftentimes if you go under different archways or go out of your path to go in between buildings, that's when extra enemies show up. So it can be as easy as you need it to be or as difficult as you want to make it. And I think the beauty in that kind of game design, and like I was even saying, the game will allow you to kind of half fail your way up to the end of it. I think that's really interesting from a game design perspective because it basically means that the difficulty settings are built in organically into the game and the gameplay itself.
Yeah, it's more like dynamic adaptive difficulty, right?
Exactly. And that's one thing I saw from a lot more Nintendo games growing up. Like you take a look at something like Super Mario 64. There's no difficulty setting on that game. You start out early on in like places like Bob-omb Battlefield, which is very simple. You can't, you really can't fall off the level. There's very few enemies that deal massive damage to you. There's no lava. There's no anything like that. So it puts you in a very sandboxy kind of place where you can learn like, oh, things can hurt me, but things can also heal me too. And, a big part of it too is that as you progress through the game, the levels get progressively more and more difficult. So it's not necessarily saying, well, we wanted you to enjoy the story of it, so we'll put an easy mode in the game. The game teaches you as you go, which I wish more games did, honestly. Because I can't imagine like a Souls game doing a great job of teaching you and you feeling completely in control because the object of the game is it's difficult,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good to mention those games, and I will say that a lot of the times with the Soulsborne games, so I've gone through Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 and 2, and I finished Bloodborne just this week. So it does seem like for some of these, the first areas of the game are somewhat tutorial-like because you'll find messages on the floor. I'm sure you're familiar with like the message mechanic where people can leave messages for each other on the floor in these games. But the game will actually have messages built in at the start of the game to tell you your basic controls. And then some of them at times feel almost like tutorials because they give you a sample of what you can expect. Like this is how enemies are going to come at me. This is the difficulty that I'm going to expect. I'm thinking about Demon Souls right now. In the first area that you go into, there's one part where you start walking up a flight of stairs, and an enemy rolls a flaming boulder down the stairs at you, and if you don't dodge it, you're dead. But it's pretty easy to kind of like dodge off the stairs and go to the lower part there and dodge the boulder. But it trains you that sometimes there are going to be traps, and you gotta watch out for those. You have to be on your toes when you play this game.
Now, see, this is where a lot of Nintendo games would have taken that same concept of like, an enemy rolling a flaming boulder down a hill at you to the point where they would give you like a view of that coming ahead of time and you've seen the effect of it. And, being able to realize, okay, I'm going to have to deal with this. So what makes sense in my head of how I have to get away from it? Basically, it's coming, but you have time to think about it and theorize like, okay, I have these abilities that I've learned so far. What can I use to get out of the way of this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fact that they have some more tutorial like levels in those games is a good thing too. Like, having, I mean, I know it's not obviously an analogous 1-to-1, but it's similar enough. Having played through Fallen Order, it had levels that felt tutorial like, especially the part where you're going through the ship graveyard of all the Venator Star Destroyers in the first level.
Yep.
It serves as a good tutorial to get you used to the platforming aspects of it, the parkour aspects, and some of the combat as well. But it always felt like those games were more like, all right, here's a tutorial level, and then we're going to drop you in this, rather than like the difficulty ramps up as part of the overall gameplay and consistently drops you in more and more challenging situations, but on a curve that allows you to naturally progress. Like I was saying, watching you play Star Fox the other night, by the time you wound up having to you had to redo the whole thing, you could see in an hour's worth of time the progression of the skills. That's what a good game does. That's one of the reasons I love the game so much, is because it can be as difficult as you want it to be or as easy as you need it to be, and your skills can progress naturally. But it also brings up an interesting point, and this is something I wanted to say because I felt like when you guys said, should a game have an easy mode, and I felt like I'm going to take the cop-out lawyer answer of it depends, because the way I feel about it is that certain games should not. One of the type of games that I feel should have easy modes, or at least multiple difficulty modes, are games that require physical timing or prowess to play. So, for example, something like a shooter, a game like Halo or anything in the Halo series absolutely needs difficulty settings, because not everybody is, doing 360 no scopes off the top of buildings and multiplayer people. Some people want to play through the game, but also don't want to die every 3 seconds, or God forbid, die before the reticle even shows up in half the Halo 2 missions if you play on Legendary. Sometimes people just want to play through the game.
It's just great mind on Legendary.
Yeah, this is Grapevine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that, whenever I get a Halo game, a new one, I always play through on Heroic first, because I want a little bit of a challenge, but I also don't want to throw my controller through my television the first time I play the game. Playing on Legendary is a challenge you go back and do once you know the level better, or when you're playing with other people. And,
so on the other hand, what games shouldn't have difficulty settings?
This is where, like, I know in some cases they probably shouldn't, some should not. I kind of feel that some platformers should not. 64, like Super Mario 64 was a good example of one that doesn't need a difficulty setting. But Crash Bandicoot is an example of one that definitely could have stood to use one in terms of allowing you to land jumps more easily, just because of how unforgiving the mechanics of the game are. And I think that's more of a game design thing than anything else. Honestly, platformers, when they're done right, are some of the games that can teach you how to play the game the best out of most styles of games. But there are some ones that
they definitely can also be the types of games that, say, if they do have a difficulty setting, and kind of like similar to what I was describing earlier, kind of like slowly remove the training wheels.
Right.
As you play and get better.
I think that should be the object of the game design itself, rather than a difficulty setting that you adjust.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the perspective that I'm coming from, rather than the game there's nothing wrong with it starting out easy and then ramping up as a way of training.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if it starts to ramp up like that, for some people it'll be too much, and that'll be a point where they stop playing because it's gotten too hard at that point. And
No, you're absolutely correct.
yeah,
That does happen eventually to people.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, like, we're thinking about this topic as people who have been playing games their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But I play games sometimes with people who didn't grow up playing games and have barely played any games at all. And you gotta remember, if somebody is coming from that background, they could fall in they're most definitely falling in a situation where the idea of using something like a second joystick
Mm-hmm.
is completely foreign to them.
Mm.
Yeah, it's totally alien. And any game that requires them to move with one stick and change the camera angle on another, it's a muscle memory that just isn't there, and we take it for granted.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good point. I think I was thinking more of 2D platformers in certain aspects, because one of the things I really like that the modern Mario and Donkey Kong games have done is that if you die a certain number of times in a row, they'll give you a guy that's invincible to work with to go
Okay.
through the level. So it's kind of like, okay, we see you're having difficulty here. Here's a guy that won't die if he hits any enemies. Now you just get to purely go through the platforming. But those are strictly for 2D games, not 3D platformers. So there is a difference to be looked at.
So I'm just talking in general with that example, with any kind of game, because nowadays most games do take place in 3D environments, and you do use two sticks.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I remember it was probably like 6 months ago at this point. But my girlfriend was over, and I wanted her to just experience Fallout New Vegas, and so I said it's a very easy, because she's not a gamer in the slightest bit, but it was funny watching her play on the easiest difficulty, and exactly what you described, Mark, just trying to watch her try to navigate through that 3D environment, trying to play with maneuvering her character and then turning. It was funny to watch at certain points, because she would get attacked by two other characters, and she'd go, all right, what do I do,
Yeah, you panic and you get overwhelmed, because if you're not used to that kind of thing, then that's a challenge right there.
Yeah, and absolutely. But the way I'm kind of looking at it, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from, Mark, but from my perspective, I guess it's just me being an old school gamer, where it's almost like you gotta earn your licks before you really finally get a chance to unlock the rest of the game and enjoy it.
Yeah,
well, I think this winds up bringing up the same question we've all been trying to figure out, is that is there a sweet spot for a game to allow people of different skill levels to start and pick up and enjoy, and be able to enjoy the game to its fullest? It's really tough, because some game styles are more difficult to start than others.
You know what games do that really well? Sports games.
Okay. You know what? Yeah, I could see that, and they do have difficulty settings for the most part, and they're really drastic sometimes.
Yeah, they have very dynamic difficulty sliders where you can go and itemize your difficulty settings too, to the point
because
where
the goal there is just to enjoy the sport. That's the only goal of the game.
Yeah, to the point where let's say I go in and try to play a game of Madden. I'm very good at playing offense on Madden, but I'm absolute garbage at playing defense. So I can go ahead yeah, I can itemize my my difficulty, where it's almost basically normal difficulty for defense, but it's a little bit higher than normal,
pro difficulty
for offense, and it's a lot more of an enjoyable experience for me, because I'm not running up the scoreboard, and I'm also not getting absolutely demolished at the same time.
That's a good point. Now, the interesting part is that with games like that, they allow you to adjust that to what fits your level, and you can kind of customize it to what you'd like to do. I think similar to that, I think there's some games and game styles that really do need difficulty settings that typically don't have them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones that I kind of feel do need difficulty settings are some RPGs, believe it or not.
Do
And
you
the
have
main
any in
one,
mind?
yes, I do. Pokemon is the top one I have in mind.
Oh yeah, you want to make it harder. I know this.
Yeah, and you know the big issue when you mentioned game difficulty, I'm like, you know, it's funny because having played Pokemon as a 10-year-old and now having played it as slightly older than a 10-year-old, you know, the big thing there is that
In
those
Bob.
games were, you know, were what'd you say?
Nothing. Nothing.
Okay. Those games are they really the difficulty kind of becomes a non-factor very early in the game if you know what you're doing. If you know how to type match and build a team, the
Yeah.
difficulty is a non-factor and the game becomes just a tedium
I know
to get through.
you've talked about it many times about how the Pokemon games, the newer ones, have become way too easy and they need more of
Yes.
a challenge. And I think right there, it'd be so easy, just right off the top of our heads, to think of how to make it more challenging for the people who want it, you know?
Just like
They already did it before.
improved AI. Like, didn't they do that with Black and White too?
They did. This is actually a very interesting thing they
Well,
did.
there's that, and then just even that, like give the trainers more Pokemon
They did that too.
and the gym leaders, yeah.
That was actually one of the things they did. Black and White 2, the sequels to Black and White 1, were some
I
of the
will get a
first.
copy. I will.
Yeah, oh, I know you will. It's just a matter of how much it's going to
Yes,
cost
my
you, man.
dealer's still looking. Don't
I'm
worry.
gunning for it at too many games this tier. Even if I have to pay $100, I don't care.
Gotcha. No, what I was going to say is that these were the only games to feature a difficulty setting in the Pokemon franchise, and the dumbest move they could have made was locking the difficulty behind completion of the game,
Yeah.
which makes no sense. You can transfer it to another person who hasn't played it yet, but that's ridiculous. To me, the concept that like, okay, the AI is improved, it battles better, the gym leaders have an extra Pokemon and they're higher levels, and they give them like better items to work with. That's fantastic. I would love to have that for a Pokemon game where like now I actually
That should
have
be in every
to
Pokemon game.
exactly. And you know what? Another reason I thought about is that Pokemon games used to feel more difficult for a very, very particular reason that I didn't think about initially. And it was the lack of diversity in the move pools for the Pokemon back then. So, for example, way back when, Red and Blue,
Mhm.
you were lucky. Like, let's say you took Charmander. Yeah, everybody loves Charizard. Um,
Not everyone, but okay.
shut up, Joe. So you know, Charmander learns Ember at like level 9, at level 7, something like that,
It's
whatever
10.
it is. What? Okay, thank you, Joe. Are you sure about that in Red and
I
Blue?
am absolutely certain.
Good lord, I'm gonna have to look this up now. I'm gonna fact check you on this one, but
All right,
It's a
then
bullshit
very
hell
it
when
very
Joe
well.
knows more about
it-
Pokemon than Russ.
Yeah, so he
Level 9.
okay,
Eat it.
so fine. He learns it at level 9,
Well, hold
and
on,
then in
let me-
Fire
hold on,
Red
let
and
me-
Leaf Green, he learns Metal Claw,
Metal Claw,
at
yeah,
level 13. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Now
Go
here's
ahead.
the thing. You know, as you're going through the game, if you evolve your Pokemon normally, you know, it gets Ember at 9 and evolves to 16 into Charmeleon and 36 into Charizard. The next time it learns another fire move is
Fire
level
Spin.
46. No, Fire Spin in the original games was actually the last move a lot of fire Pokemon learned. It learns it at level 46. By the time you get to level 46, you're at the 7th gym or higher at that point, and you're still working off of Ember, and that's the only fire move available to you. Of course,
Which is
the game
why
is
in
difficult.
my Elite Four teams, I would often have my starter with its like starting elemental attack.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But then I take a look. Like I'm going to fast forward to the Generation 8 decks, which is the most recent one. Okay, so it learns Ember at level 4, which means that it gets it before you would even get it as a starter. Fire Fang at 17, Flamethrower 24, Fire Spin at 32, Inferno at 36, and Flare Blitz at 40. Now, as a Charizard, let's see, its highest one is 62 with Flare Blitz, but it's still getting Flamethrower before it even evolves into Charizard. That difference in having so many more things available, like its entire moveset is now filled with like Dragon moves, fire moves, and a few normal types. Whereas in the original generation, most Pokemon had like a few of their type and mostly just filler normal moves in their move pool. And the TMs were single use and kind of trash until you got the good ones. I think
Yeah.
that made the game more difficult in general because most of the Pokemon's move pools were kind of trash.
Well, then I mean
and
that's not necessarily like a gripe with the actual difficulty of the game. It's
well,
just like
it
the
kind of
limitations
is
to game
because they
design, though, isn't it?
no, well, not necessarily because they could have made improvements on that in Gold and Silver, and they barely did anything that really improved it. They may have made it, a little bit easier for certain Pokemon. Like, for example, in Red and Blue, you can only catch a Rhyhorn in the Safari Stone. It's like level 25, so it has Horn Attack when you get it, and that's it.
Right.
Well, since you can breed Pokemon in Gold and Silver, they have to kind of put the move pool back into a better area where like it has more than one attack up until level 25.
Mm-hmm.
So they fixed up those type of things, which makes sense, and gave them egg moves available as well. But the issue there is that they could have done a lot to fix that type of situation, but they really didn't do a whole hell of a lot. I would say it probably wasn't until we got to, I would say, Generation 4 or 5 that they actually started to fix this up and make things a lot easier to work with, which was a nice quality of life improvement, but it also served to bring down the difficulty of the game. And they basically, while simultaneously having Pokemon get better movesets, also gave trainers less Pokemon. And I mean, I can't even tell you, playing through X and Y, how many trainers I faced that had one Pokemon. One. You can have 6. You could throw 5 Pokeballs at 5 Magikarp and fill out your team and have 6.
Come on,
And
X and Y trainers. Even youngster Joey had the right idea over you. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Is that like, I get it for a kid who's like 6 or 7 years old, who's getting their first Pokemon game, and they're spamming tackle all the way up until the Elite Four. I get it. It makes sense. Like, you don't want the game to be so difficult that they give up playing it, because if they give up playing it, they won't have their parents buy the next one for them.
But then
I
at
get
that point, shouldn't there be more of like a dynamic adaptive difficulty system?
There should
baked
be, but
in?
the issue with it is that the way Pokemon has typically worked, because of the fact that you have Pokemon who evolve at certain levels and learn moves at certain levels, it kind of had to be hard-coded of sorts, because the difficulty of, like, for example, when you first face off against Misty in Red and Blue, the
Mhm.
big challenge of facing Misty is
Was her
that she has a
Starmie.
fully evolved Pokemon. She
Mhm.
has a Starmie, which is, I mean, you know my opinion on it, but is one of the top water types is still to this day. It's fast, it's powerful, it gets a really strong move pool, and its ace move is half the power of Hydro Pump, the most powerful water type move. But when you get there, unless you have an Ivysaur, your best bet against it is a Pikachu or like
A Bellsprout or an Oddish.
an-
Yeah.
exactly, which is going to get
Pikachu was
shredded by it.
Pikachu was a rare find in that Viridian Forest.
3% chance to find it.
3%. I remember. Is that what it is? 3%. I remember.
3%.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and just learning that I could find Pikachu in that forest. And of course, I was a kid. Pikachu was my favorite.
Mhm.
Loved Pikachu, so I had to have it. I just remember, spending so long going through that forest trying to get one. And then the chubby little guy finally pops up, and you're elated.
Oh my god, yeah. And the thing is that it was cool because it was the mascot of Pokemon, but he was super weak, like super weak. Like you were lucky if the thing hit level 20, if it would do maybe 40% damage with a Thunder Shock to that Starmie. That thing was going to wreck you, because part of the challenge was, hey, this thing's level 20 and it's fully evolved. That's the challenge. If it wound up being an adaptive difficulty, it might have been a different circumstance, because then you run the risk of having weird difficulty spikes and weird difficulty drops.
Well, no, I don't mean it that way, but like, so when I think of like an adaptive difficulty for like a Pokemon game, I mean more so with like the decision making of the AI. Do they use like healing items on a turn that they have instead of attack? Versus...
Yes. So the way it works is that in the original games, and even in certain games, let me finish. I know what you mean. No, let me finish. There's 2 things the AI typically does. One, they always go for super effective attacks regardless, and regardless of whether it does damage or not, because of the typing. That's a story for a different day, with the whole Dragonite using barrier against a Venomoth and the Twitch plays Pokemon thing. But the other part of it too is that typically gym trainers, like gym leaders and Elite Four members, typically have potions or full restores. And if you get their Pokemon down to the red zone, they'll heal them up right away.
Yes.
Some have what seems to be like an unlimited number, and there's this weird thing in Red and Blue where if you get a status move on one of the gym leaders' Pokemon, it doesn't seem to use a turn, and they use a full heal anyway. I never understood that. But that was the thing. They had the ability to heal their Pokemon. So, that was a big part of at least making that more adaptively difficult, but it was more like a hurdle to get around than anything else. It just taught you like, okay, I'll do a little bit of chip damage and I'll blast them with a super effective attack so I don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
And that was the extent of the difficulty in that sense.
Mhm.
No, what I was trying to get at is I think they just should have that system baked in where like the game should be able to detect, all right, so this dude hasn't lost several matches. Let's try to ramp up the difficulty a little bit. So like instead of trying to just go for this super effective attack, try and take it a little bit more, tactically and use like an X defend or an X special or whatever. Try to like
Well,
give themselves
keep
a
in
little bit
mind,
of an advantage.
they did do that with certain trainer classes throughout the game, but keep in mind that the way Pokemon typically works is that it's not like, you could lose a battle here or there and, they
Right,
got
and
you and you
so
just go
then,
back
like, when
down.
it
You
gets to
you
that
you go back to your
point,
last save point,
right, so when
essentially.
it
Oh no,
gets
you
to
go back to
that
the Pokemon Center.
point,
Sorry.
like, then if you lose a match or you lose a battle and you get that punishment where you have to go through
Mhm.
and walk through the entire dungeon just to get to that trainer again, then that's
Yeah.
the game's indication, okay, maybe we need to ramp things down a little bit. Let's make things
Well,
slightly easier so that way,
I
you
I
know.
think I think the better way to do it, in all honesty, would be um to improve the move sets and improve the strategy of the AI themselves and give you a difficulty slider.
Mhm.
Because in all honesty, I think that's probably the easiest way to handle it. And even if it was just something like, okay, the level scaling is stronger throughout this, or even in the newer games, no experience share. None of that. Get it out of here. I cannot stand that in the new games because even in Sword and Shield, you can't turn it off.
Mm.
So, which means that,
You
you
don't
could
have
stash
to
like
use
several
anything
Pokemon.
except your
Yeah,
starter.
yeah, and you'll level up the entire team. And it's ridiculous. There's no reason for that. That is basically like just taking the difficulty level and slamming it through the floor. Um,
Does it give your benched Pokemon the same amount of XP as the active one?
no, it's half.
Oh,
But I mean, it might as well be if you're going to use a few different ones because some of them grow at different levels anyway. But it ruins the difficulty of the game. It basically makes it a boring walkthrough of a game where you're like, oh, I guess I'll train this one now. I should never finish a Pokemon game with a full team that is a higher level than the final boss without grinding.
Hmm.
Doesn't that seem ridiculous to you guys?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that's
I mean, normally in the older Pokemon games, you would go to a gym, and if you didn't do any grinding, they would be a few levels higher than you. They would have less Pokemon maybe, but they
yeah.
would be stronger than yours.
I mean, I just think about playing through like Silver was probably Gold and Silver were probably the worst. The whatchamacallit, the worst offenders of this is that like when you get to the end of the Elite Four and you go up against Lance, the guy's got like three below legal level Dragonites at like level 47 for two of them and level 50 for one of them. And you're lucky if you're going to walk in there with a team close to level 40. Honestly, Gold and Silver is the only game in the series which doesn't where it doesn't pay off to have a full team. It pays off to have like three Pokemon, of which one is typically Typhlosion and another one is like a Jinx or something and a water type, and just bull rush the Elite Four with them at a higher level. And that's not good game design, but that's also a really big difficulty spike. Not only that, but going to face red at the end of the game after going through an underleveled Kanto region, and then the jump is from like, oh, my Pokemon are in the mid 50s, and then this guy's Pokemon are in the high 70s. So it's not well designed.
Okay, so like okay, so back to the big
Yes, go ahead.
picture
Sorry.
in terms of difficulty in games. You said you're kind of on the fence, like it depends on the case by
It does.
case. So I mean, let's say you could snap your fingers and you had the choice to either like leave games as they are or add some sort of easy mode to each of them. What would you do?
As far as I'm concerned, an easy mode isn't hurting anybody.
Yeah.
I think that's the way I feel about it. I do kind of understand where Joe's coming from of like what's to say they'll ever play something else besides easy mode. The only thing I would say is that,
But also, what's
if
to
so,
say they'll ever want to or ever
exactly.
for their
Right.
enjoyment?
Right. As far as I'm concerned, easy modes never hurt people. And I'm not judging people. I mean, like, look, we grew up with games, but not everybody did.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
I would just like it if some of the designers would actually realize, like, hey, easy mode's cool. Give us a hard mode too.
Yeah, so yeah, I enjoy it. The more options, the better. I think we can agree on that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I guess mainly I'm more about the accessibility factor and
Hmm.
more people being able to enjoy our favorite art form
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, and I
get
mean
into
that's
it,
fair.
Hmm.
even if we're playing on normal or higher. For the most part, it'd be nice. It could only be better if more people get into it and grow the industry as a whole. I would say the main argument probably against my point would be if somebody brought up the Soulsborne games, something like
Yeah.
that, that is built to be challenging.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would argue that those games should never have an easy mode because part of the allure of them is that
Is they're
they're
difficult.
they're very difficult,
Yeah.
and when you get past a boss, you feel a real sense of accomplishment,
Yeah.
which is true. And the games are very difficult, and beating a boss in those games is going to feel better than beating a boss in pretty much any other game you could play because it's always a real battle where you're
Hmm.
fighting tooth and nail sometimes.
Oh, I know. I was real happy when I beat that darn Ogdo Bogdo.
The Ogdobogdo and
Freaking
Devil.
frog.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's the kind of feeling it gives you, and I do agree with that, but at the same time, I think there is a way to add an easier mode to those types of games. Of course,
Mhm.
it's always going to be up to the developer. I would never encourage any sort of like mandate where the industry is pushing for every game to have an easy mode. It's going to be up to the discretion of the developer,
Oh, absolutely.
and they have their say in the matter there. But I think that it's
It
something
doesn't
that
hurt anybody.
it's an idea that should be talked about. Yeah, putting an easier mode in these games because most people they hear Dark Souls and they think difficult game, but
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it than that. That's just one of the things that draws you to this series of games is the challenge of it and conquering a really difficult game. But there's more to it than that. It has great combat, and I was talking to Joe about this earlier when I was talking to him about my overall thoughts in Bloodborne. The
Hmm.
worlds are expertly crafted,
Oh,
character
yeah.
character designs are amazing. The environmental based story building is well done in these games always, and you're just trying to piece it together on your own. They're not really telling things to you directly.
No, you're
So
right.
out of all the reasons to play these games, the challenge is only one of them. But because of that damning difficulty that they put in the games, there are a lot of people who will never experience what these games have to offer aside from that.
It's interesting because it gets into this, like, you probably have two camps that would form upon this because there's like a weird gatekeeping that takes place with something like that. Like some people would say, like, well, if you can't figure out how to get good at the game, then you should just go play something else.
Yeah,
And I feel
Well,
like do that as like a misguided sense of having to prove their own self-worth,
I mean,
instead of
I
saying
I
like you
can
want more people to enjoy the medium.
understand that perspective, but I also feel like that's the wrong way
It's
to approach
self-defeating.
it. Yeah, no, I'm more so of the camp of saying, yeah, this game is difficult, but you're going to eventually overcome it with
Right.
practice.
I think that's
yeah,
the thing is that, we've all known somebody who we've tried to get involved in a certain type of game and they couldn't get the hang of it or felt like they were kind of, just floating there helpless trying to figure it out. And it's never a good feeling for either person. One, because you feel bad that like you gave them something that they're having a tough time with and the other person is just getting frustrated.
Hmm.
So I
yeah,
can definitely, I think the easy mode stuff definitely helps with that. And not only that, you know, if you have people who could play through something and it's not going to give them a ton of frustration, that's more sales for a game that you enjoy. That means there'll be more games in that series that you enjoy.
Yeah.
yeah. And going back to the example, like I'm gonna be using Bloodborne a lot for this discussion, especially
Hmm.
because I just finished my first playthrough of it. Um, but yeah, I don't think that those games will ever have a difficulty setting, and maybe it would be a betrayal to the games if they did have a difficulty setting, because
Hmm.
the difficulty is
The
so
game.
yeah, it is. It's such an essential part of the series identity, and it actually wouldn't be the same kind of experience playing it on an easier difficulty, because if you're not having a difficult time with some of the enemies, then you're not going to get that sense of accomplishment. You're not going to have those same feelings as someone who's gone through it on its standard setting, for example.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't know. There are ways where people could still keep their bragging rights. Uh, in these games, typically you'll get a trophy every time you beat a boss.
Yeah.
So maybe they could make, if there was an easy setting, they could only give you that trophy if you're playing on the true difficulty
You
setting.
get the participation trophy.
Yeah. Whereas if you are playing on an easier mode, you don't get any trophies until like maybe the end of the game, saying, "Hey, you beat it on this easier difficulty," but you don't get any of those boss specific trophies.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I kind of like that
like
idea. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm not saying that I would play it on that mode,
Mhm.
because it is part of the allure of these games. But for people who otherwise wouldn't try these games, it would be a good option, and they would get to see what all the hype is about, at least partially.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely a good way to do it too, because I mean, like we talked about before, that we're kind of gatekeeping that goes on there. I think you have some people who are like, um, this is my realm of things I do. I don't do sports stuff. I play video games and I'm good at it. So if you can't get to my level, that's unfortunate for you. But I like the idea you mentioned, Mark, about, they can play the game, but they don't get the same achievements, which then kind of pushes somebody to want to go for those higher achievements. You know, I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, so it's a way that they could work it out there and still give more people an opportunity to experience these games, because yeah, the difficulty is punishing, and it's forbidding.
Oh yeah,
So, but it's not the only thing. Like I said, it's not the only feature of these games. They have a lot to offer beyond that.
very true.
Yeah, so
Mm.
I'm fine with the way difficulty is in games right now. I mean, modern games are much easier than they were, you know, back in the '90s and before that,
Mhm.
when we first started playing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, ultimately, I would like to see more options for difficulty for accessibility reasons. So if people want to play a game like it's a movie, they have the option to do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but then at the same token, couldn't you then just argue, watch someone else play it on YouTube?
That's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's not this. I mean, I've loved video games my whole life, but I don't watch people play Let's Plays. It's just not something.
Mhm.
It doesn't translate. It doesn't give me the same kind of experience.
Yeah, the only
It's
reason to
not as
watch is for the
engrossing.
banter, you know? Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry,
so like,
Mark.
yeah, I'm playing the game so I can play it, so I can be in that experience, not just to completely watch it.
But if you're just going
Mhm.
into it just to experience the story, and you just want to watch it as if it's an interactive movie, why not just watch someone else play it?
It's
because
not
there's
the
still
same
your
thing.
because there's still your choices when you're playing the game, even if it's easier or even
Mhm.
if it's a mode where you can't die, you're still controlling that character
Okay.
and doing what you want to do. And if it's a game that allows you to
Make those
build your character
choices, yeah.
build a character in a certain way, for example, like let's say you're playing an RPG and there's different things you could do. Like let's say you could be the strong dude who swings around a big weapon, or maybe you want to be the dexterity focused archer,
Mhm.
or a mage. You have those options. All the reasons we would play a game for, all those choices that we can make and have those impacts on the game experience and control the experience ourselves. That's why you would play the game versus watching someone play it.
I mean, fair enough. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure to bring up that as a point because I would be
Yeah,
remiss if I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile point to bring up, but that's the real thing that separates video games from
From
movies.
movies.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's
Yeah,
what
why
we touched on
why play
earlier.
Doom 3 when you can watch Doom unrated?
Yeah, same experience. Note for note.
Basically. Yeah.
I
There's
want
no difference between the two.
I want to be able to, yeah, if I was playing Doom 3, then I could control Dwayne Johnson and
Hey, there you go.
maybe I could make choices that actually made sense. You know?
I hear if you press like several buttons at the same time, he asks you if you smell what the Rock is cooking.
That'd be a great Easter egg. So that's my take on it, and
Yeah.
I'd like to see more people who are able to play these games. The more, the better, and the more options.
Yeah,
the
for
better.
sure. Like I said at the start of this, I understand why they put in easier difficulties. They're not for me.
Yeah, same. I think we all share that opinion, but more options, the better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
at the end of the day, we want people to enjoy our favorite hobby.
Yes.
Like I said, extra options never hurt anybody.
Indeed. You guys have any other comments about it?
No, I think I've had enough tangents and said my piece for now.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
Joe?
get good at the game, bro.
Way to
Joe's
ruin
buzz.
all of what we just said.
Get good, scrub.
Oh, good God.
All right, yeah. So that's great for this community building discussion we've had. Great cherry on top there, Joe.
Good job,
You're
Joe.
welcome. We just punted.
You just scribbled all over this.
We punted on
Michelangelo
first
discussion.
down, Russell.
Oh, good God.
We just achieved a first down, and then we decided to punt.
You must know the Eagles.
All
right. Anything more to say, have you?
No. What have you been up to, Russell?
I've been working. I've been working and playing Star Fox.
You've been playing the game of work?
I've been playing the game of work, teaching a lot of music. So, yeah.
Wait, have you played any more Skyrim?
I've not in weeks. Not since before these camps started. So.
Oh, God.
Well,
yeah, I intend on getting back to it. It's just
games.
I know I haven't played over Encumbrance Simulator in quite a few weeks. It says the last time I played was mid-July.
Yeah, well, you got to let us know when you hop back into it because I'm interested to
hear the tale.
Yeah, well, I want to know what you think of like the main story, especially go through and play through the main campaign, and then finish the Dragonborn DLC. I wanna know your thoughts on it.
Okay.
It's nothing groundbreaking. Don't take that.
I mean, it's an Elder Scrolls game. The main campaign is nothing to really write home about.
Right, so. But I want to know what your thoughts are overall of the story of Skyrim as a whole. Like, you don't have to play through Dogengard. You don't have to do all of the quest lines. Just play the main quest and play the Dragonborn DLC quest line. Just let me know what you think of it.
Okay. It might be a little while, Joe.
Yeah. Best way to reinvigorate yourself in a game like that is to stop doing all the side stuff that you've been doing
and hit the main.
Stop over encumbering yourself. Yeah, just focus on the main story for a while, and then I'll freshen it up.
Don't pick up literally everything you see.
Oh, it's definitely not that I grew sour on the game. I just didn't have the time for it because it's the same reason that I was reluctant to get into it in the first place. Is what wound up taking me out of playing it was I didn't have the time for it.
Well, that's good. Hopefully you just get the time soon.
Oh, I should. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that. I know one thing I'm definitely looking forward to that's coming up with the next few months, or actually even next few weeks itself, is going to be some extra DLC for Age of Empires 2. So that's going to be fun. And then Age of Empires 4 comes out in October, and new Metroid. So, yeah. More to put on the docket.
So what you're saying is you're not going to be playing Skyrim for a very long time?
No, I wouldn't say that. But it might be hit the back burner again because it'll always be there.
Yeah.
It'll always be there for me.
And you're going to go into it and be like, oh, I don't remember any of this. I'm going to start over.
I'm usually pretty good with remembering where I was at in games like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
But I will let you know once I play it more. I'll probably have some time this week, so I can hopefully regale you with the tale.
Yeah, and if you don't want to go too far in the main quest, because I don't know if you're like me and you like to finish the main quest last after the side stuff, but
usually.
Yeah, so if you don't want to go too heavy on the main quest, the guild storylines and the Civil War.
I did do the Mages Guild. I have
you
to
really
finish the Fighters Guild, and I just attempted to join the Stormcloak Rebellion.
Yeah, good stuff.
Oh,
So all that stuff is going to be.
you're a filthy rebel.
Hey man,
I was
whatever it
a
is. I'm sorry. I'm not a big fan of Rome.
Empire
So-
for life.
Oh yeah, okay. Here comes the Latin.
This guy over here. Don't talk too much about Latin. I just got done playing Bloodborne. You're going to trigger some PTSD.
Russell,
Joe, do you know any Latin phrases?
Russell, you're being played by the Aldmeri Dominion. How dare you
Am
join
I?
the Stormcloak Rebellion? Yeah, there's
Look,
your
I'm
Latin.
I'm gonna put it to you this way. I absolutely like thrash the Aldmeri Dominion in the ESO online or Elder Scrolls Online.
Well,
So
listen here. The only hope to save the world of Tamriel is a, strong and unified Cyrodiilic empire.
this is starting to sound a lot like the stuff you'd hear from the late emperors of Rome, especially in the 3rd century crisis, and we all see how that one worked out.
Yeah, we'll also take a look at what happened now.
What Joe is saying is that you just need to build a wall around Skyrim, specifically in the southern part of it.
Oh, okay.
No, that's the
That's-
opposite of what I'm saying.
You need to build the wall,
Oh
and the
my gosh.
Argonians will fund it.
Oh my god. I think we've hit the end point of this one. Oh boy. All right.
Well, gentlemen, do you have anything else to say?
I think that just about does it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on another episode of Dialogue Options. I have been your host, Cobalt Cat, joined by Marcamune and Ace X-Wing 88. As always, Mark and Russ, thank you guys for joining us again. We had another great talk, boys.
Great night, yes.
Yeah.
All
and
right,
it was
well-
especially fun when Russell wasn't here.
Oh, great. Okay.
You're gonna have to listen to that, Russ. We had a good talk.
We did. We were talking about a lot of magic and Bloodborne and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, but that just about does it. So, hasta la vista.
Peace.
Bye.